Got it. See, Duncan business is going up because their meetings.
Stewards. I should get one of their tenders. Yeah, oh yeah, I must know.
Could be. I doubt it though.
I'll ask.
Yeah.
So you gotta show your absurd love for stewards as an upstander. Listen.
It's like the Berkshires or the Berkshires.
I can't do it the way you do it. It's like nails on
Your Troy accent.
So it's from Troy with a specific pronunciation. I've seen people say that. I was like, I don't know. This is how we all have that.
It's easy to tell someone who's not from this area, just notice towns.
Let's see.
Try a list of Massachusetts,
Roll out.
especially Worcester.
Yeah.
Ballston.
Yeah.
Skiing. Who? Oh, that's
That is Mario Brothers.
Is
Let the games begin. Did you just get all of your lives?
Oh, it worked out with it. How's that? Luigi.
It is my son, of course.
So it is Mario Brothers.
That's funny.
Hey, I'm not over.
Technically, no, we haven't started yet.
You there? I'm in a meeting, village meeting. Bye.
Okay, that's gonna be one for the real. Go, save that clip for us.
I will leave that in.
Yeah.
Tell him to raise his hand on Zoom.
Yeah. Exactly. Please state the Pledge of Allegiance by Bradley Flint.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the first regular meeting of the Village of Ballston Spa Board of Trustees, July 10th, 2023, the first regular meeting of July, that is. And at this point, we'll go to our minutes. Can I get a motion that the minutes of June 12th, 2023 be approved? Trustee Baskin, trustee Fondainza, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The 26th, Terry's been catching up because she had some time out, so she is catching up on those, and we'll have both of the sets at the next meeting most likely. So we'll get to those. Mayor announcements, nothing really I'm going to press here, aside from just reinforcing we have the enhanced traffic enforcement this summer, at least 2 days a week. An officer will be going to hot spots to make sure people are stopping at stop signs, not speeding, and obeying laws generally, and that includes bicycles, pedestrians to a certain degree too, but cars especially because of some of the issues that we've been noticing. Social media has been filled with anecdotes and some pictures and the rest, and so it's time to do something, especially with the larger amount of cars that we'll be seeing coming into the community here. It is not a revenue grab. This is truly for safety's sake, and so we are going to be doing that this summer, see how it works. It's a pilot program for us, and thanks to Chief Bush and our Ballston Spa Police Department for doing that for us.
I would like to add with that if possible, well, I know it's possible, but any tickets issued as a result of the additional shifts, that we collect the data and find out what they are, just to see what the level of effectiveness is, and if it has a positive result. I'd be curious to know that data.
I think that we'll probably have Chief Bush here for his department report, probably late August, early September, probably have a good take for that at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll take a couple of months.
So,
Do we know, I had asked you this Saturday morning, how much revenue we do generate when we give a formula? How does that work? Or do we actually collect anything on those?
let me give you that one, because you're used to handling them as the attorney.
There were about $25 fines at the most that they get. I don't know the amount that we collect through it. There are surcharges, the state gets above and beyond that, but the village is maybe $10, I think 50 might be the highest.
For speeding?
Now, speeding isn't a village.
No, that's what I'm asking about. They're going to be enforcing traffic regulations such as speeding.
I don't think the village gets any of that. That's all state law.
I
I don't know the answer to that, Liz. I can look it up, but
Yeah,
we've never
I'm
always.
curious, our police force is employed by us, they're enforcing
Right, you probably
traffic
get,
laws.
there's specific charges that I can ask the judge about, but like as far as can we fine them or do we get any of that? I don't think we get any of the fine money. I think that goes all to the state.
there's court charges, so we do get.
Yeah, but they're probably insignificant. They're probably not a whole lot, but I can find out the exact amount for you.
No, it's just curious, what does the local municipality
Wasn't
get?
there some issue with signage that it was difficult to enforce speeding violations? I know somebody, I don't know if it was Bob Kavanaugh or somebody brought that up.
I think we're pretty square on 30 miles per hour most everywhere, and 15 in school zones or and such. So I'm not sure why that would be difficult. But nonetheless, there's some clear areas, clearly marked areas that are definitely being gone through, and so it's time to get aggressive to, make it less so happening for safety's sake.
In terms of speeding, the other option or another option that I'd support is Sean has mentioned as a traffic engineer that those radar signs that show what your speed is are very effective, and that might be worth an investment.
Yeah, and that was something that the school district was working on. I got to follow up with Ed Martin because it was supposed to happen last year, and they were going to be especially around the Hyde, Chapman area because of their desire to use them there, on loan to the village technically because it's our property, but they would be putting them there and also offers the option to move them when they didn't feel it was as necessary there too. So I'll be checking with that. on that.
I'd appreciate if you could also ask about the Ballston Ave, where accidents actually are, the schools are. I think that would be worth exploring, having those radar measurements as well.
Although again, don't forget where the dividing line for the village is there. So it's a little bit of a town of Ballston issue, even more so than us because of where the schools are. So just keep that in mind with that.
Sorry to jump in. I know everybody. Residents from Malta Avenue have been talking to me, so the school could maybe perhaps think about using their radars there.
Yep. Okay, liaison reports, Liz.
For the
Microphone.
For the library, we've got quite a bit here. There's the summer reading club is in full swing, self-guided reading programs with prizes for kids, teens, and adults. The program for kids and teens will begin this week. There's an additional story time runs in the months of July and August at Kelly Park on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Featuring mystery readers such as the police and fire department personnel. This Saturday, they will have a mixed media artist, Joan Van Jenderson, can't pronounce that. She'll lead an art journaling class at 11 a.m. It's for people 16 and up, and it's a collaborative with the Ballston Arts Council, Ballston Spa Arts Council. With the Friends of the Library, they have a cart with books for sale for a small donation to help their fundraising. And they have a table at the farmers market every other Saturday, the next date being July 22nd. And the library has now gone fine free. So if you have books that you didn't return on time, you can return them and you won't be charged a fine. So we encourage people to please take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Not a lot to report from VSBPA. They are plugging along with their events. The farmer's market, oh, by the way, there's a new vendor at the farmer's market. Samosas, just plugging them. They were delicious. But I know concerts are already happening. And they're just working on a lot to promote the small businesses in our village. And as you guys see later on the agenda that they had put their application in for car show, they put together a team, and I'm sure that they would welcome any help that the community might want to give. That's it.
Sean.
I didn't get an opportunity to talk with Jeff, but I do know that we did some striping. I noticed that, and I know that he was wrapping up cameras and around the pool, and I'm sure he's also starting to plan for paving, because when we last spoke, he wanted to try to start that earlier than October, like we have in past years. So
I believe we will have a list, or at least a subject to change list, coming at the next meeting. He and I were going to discuss some of that today, just to look at feasibility costs and whatnot. So he's got to price it out in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have that ready to go to start warning people which streets will be affected. Also, the crosswalks are still going to be painted red eventually here between rainfall and some questions about the paint we were going to use and whatnot. We held back on that until we're sure that we're going to get what we need on Front Street. And aside from that, we made it through the majority, at least, of the rainstorm without what I would call a lot of devastation today, like we were maybe expecting, because I think got clipped by the storm a little less than we thought we were going to, but it did create some basement issues and the normal, in a village with infrastructure situations, things we experienced, but not major reports of flooding out of streets, et cetera. So we were very lucky in this one that we did not get what, let's say, New York City got in a once in a millennium type of rainstorm yesterday, especially. So thank you to DPW for everything they've been doing to keep us, quote unquote, above water here. Ben.
The Arts Committee has been very busy. They are, in addition to working with the library to publicize the art journaling with Joanne, they continue to develop their website and business cards and flyers and letterhead. And they're working on an art map for the village. There's a couple things coming up. One is called a plein air class. There's 2 of them actually. It means fresh air class, open air class, painting outside with artist named Gail Talmadge. The first one's Tuesday, August 1st, rain date August 2nd. It's at Brookside, 6 to 8 p.m. Second one's Friday, September 1st at Old Iron Spring. It's on the agenda, 6 to 8 p.m. rain date September 2nd. It's going to be $20 for residents of 12020 and $30 for others. There's 20 seats only, and you can reserve your spot at info@bspararts.org, and they accept cash or check at the class. There's also another exciting concert series coming up in the village, the Sounds of Ballston, organized again by members of the Committee on the Arts. It is well, first tell you about it. It's going to be at the Saratoga County History Center, also known as Brookside Museum. First one's July 30th. There's a concert band, professional concert band, rain date August 2nd. They're all at 3 p.m. on Sunday. The next one's August 13th. There's a jazz band, rain date August 16th. Saturday, November 18th, there's a James Street String Quartet, and then Saturday, December 30th, there's a string trio. So they're having 4 concerts. It's paid for by Saratoga Arts and also the Musician Performance Trust Fund. So the villages did not have to contribute to this, but it looks like an excellent cultural addition to our village. And their next meeting is July 19th in the library at 7 p.m. The Park and Tree. The chair wanted to make sure that we thanked, or that she thanked, and Park and Tree thanks DPW for their swift and very thorough work removing the yews and the bishop's weed behind the yews in Wiswall Park. They did a really great job, and the whole thing looks level and great. And we are pursuing, we approved last meeting to the scope of work for Studio A on the Wiswall design. And Frank, you haven't done anything yet with that, right? You're going to schedule a meeting on that?
I actually reached out to Judy on Saturday as I was reviewing everything, and especially the two designs she sent me, and asked her if she could, with probably Caitlin's help, identify what she'd use as fixed in those plans, or what could be movable in the long range type of situation. Obviously, trees are pretty easy to identify, but I wasn't sure if the benches, for instance, were going to be tied to the ground, or what they expected to be exactly permanent on that right side of the drawings. So I'm asking her to identify that to help aid Labella in deciding or determining what the recommendations would be ultimately. If it's a temporary structure of some sort, obviously it can be over the infrastructure. If it's not, it's a whole different story. So just waiting for that, and then I'm going to send it over.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And Labella is, are they working on whether it needs to be, when do you expect the determination of whether to relocate realign the sewer line?
We signed that, I want to say a couple weeks ago. I sent that in. So it's supposed to be about an 8-week type of scenario. So let's call it 8 to 10 weeks based on.
Oh, really?
how
That long?
Oh, yeah, they're identifying existing conditions, then they're going in and designing locations, and will work with us from that point forward to identify them and then come to a final conclusion ultimately.
As long as we're talking about Labella, do we know if they've submitted the DOT application for Route 50?
I have not, today I did not have the opportunity. We're actually chasing, we've been getting a lot of water requests, to be honest with you, from Town of Milton. And we're trying to keep track of all of them and get them done. And so that's been today's Labella experience, was getting all those kind of reviewed and moving them in the right direction. So I will be following up on Route 50 this week.
All right, thank you
Yep.
very much.
Okay, let's go to treasurer's report. I will read it this week. Melissa was able to get us this today, and she'll be doing it on Fridays from here on out. So that's in the package. We're playing a little bit of catch up. As you can see, though, EFPR was able to get the June reports out today with that one little glitch that you caught, Liz. But as I said,
13 million. Huh?
well, it's a little flip of a parenthesis basically there, but we know what they meant.
With a couple of zeros between.
Amen. Total June sales tax receipts were just south of $13 million by the county. This amount was approximately $183,000, or 3.87% lower than the $13.5 million received in June of last year. Also, SPA received $112,646, which was for sales tax generated mostly in April. The village received the distribution on June 20th, 2023. And as we've passed the final date to turn in property taxes and meter cards before the deadline, we've applied penalties to the property taxes and are beginning to add non-meter fee reads to utility bills, non-meter read fees, I should say. Once these fees are applied, I will be calculating water bills, Melissa said, which will go out on or around August 1st. So there is treasurer's report. No presentation tonight, and keeping things nice and simple. So a quick question, I just want to go in reverse here, Ben. Is the purchase of property for court and police about a specific property or no? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and this might be an executive session.
That's what I was
that
just
they're-
trying to determine. Yep.
I feel like we should continue a conversation about, there are some potential options, possibilities, theoretically at least, within the village. And I just feel like we should be talking about those.
Sure. Well, I think naming them out loud is probably not to your advantage from a business sense, but maybe this is a communication to have internally. And then if we get more specific into an executive session, I get what you're saying, and I have no problem with that. I just don't want to go a route where we end up kind of stepping in it.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd just like to ask, in relation to facilities, not purchase of anything, but Village Hall, the repairs.
And that's one more thing that's got to be added onto the Labella list of things. I want to work with them to begin to secure on that, what their RFP process is going to look like, et cetera. We've been kind of giving them a deluge of stuff lately, so we got to be a little careful, but it's got to be done. And you're right about that. Also, I should report to you in the same light. Jeff and I had sat down with Pasquale, who is their head architect at Labella, last week, because they generated a report or a proposal for renovation or rebuild really of the DPW on its current site. It's about a $12,500 proposal. We walked through and also talked about ways to sort of cut our losses if we reach a point where we think that it can't be done for some reason or it would be problematic. So I'm gonna have that ready for you for the next meeting. I just want to dot some i's and cross some t's with them over there about a couple pieces of the language and get the proposal out to you to review it.
So they're going to be looking at feasibility of renovating.
And
existing-
plans, et cetera,
and
yeah.
Plans. Are they going to do a space plan? Because
Yes, the first thing they do.
Something that.
The first thing they do in this is they go in and do an evaluation with the DPW staff, sitting down to say, what are you using? How are you using it? What do you need? What's missing? What's
Yeah.
extraneous, et cetera? What do you need outside the walls? Can we put some of these under essentially cold storage approach, which is not inside the walls, but still over a shade scenario where you save some square footage of building that way. So there is that analysis first, then they go and do
Yeah.
in the lab per se, the architectural drawings and begin to work with us to say, what do you think of this? And that's where we can probably say, oh, that looks like a train wreck and I don't think we can do anything here. Or we say, oh, it looks great, keep going, fix this, fix that.
Because it would be good to sort of segment that study into that space plan, because that plan alone might show that the existing building doesn't have enough space in it to accommodate what they really need.
Pasquale has done multiple of these garages throughout towns and villages in the state. He's showing us a couple of examples. So I have no doubt that he can work with us, knows what he's doing with respect to it. So I think we're in great hands. I just want to make sure that we didn't overspend in a situation where,
Well,
God
that's
forbid, it
why
was
I'd
a
like
bad
to
thing.
see a two-part, first do the space plan.
That's what it is.
And for a fee, and then, phase two, depending on what phase one shows,
Yeah.
so that we don't go, drawing things when it isn't gonna work.
That was 100% what the meeting was, why I wanted that meeting on Friday, and he fully understood and is going to work. I guess his history is to overestimate on these proposals, the dollars, and often coming under, because he doesn't like the reputation of coming in over on those things. So I can appreciate that.
And the fee for him to do.
12.5 was the entire thing minus testing, soil testings, et cetera. So not including the environmental type stuff, they're including just the actual drawings and assessment.
So as part of their engagement, are they gonna be doing soil testing?
It would not be done as part of the 12.5. So that would be something that you could go out to somebody else to do, is what they're saying, or they would have to price up from there. So let me get it to you for the next meeting. You'll see specifically if you have questions before that. I'm going to try to get it to you hopefully by the end of this week, so that you have about a week to review it and handle it.
Yeah,
So
because the soil testing could be an issue there.
I understood, and that's why I wanted to flag that, and that's where we are. Okay.
Sorry, as long as I'm talking about engineering. LaBerge and the water tower, are they working on a cost estimate for the lead paint?
Well, one thing we realized, Bob Kavanaugh dug out the last assessment that they had from back when, and lead was supposed to be taken care of in that one. And so I asked him to go fetch that report basically for us to see it and compare it against what they think they're finding right now. I'm wondering if they're not finding trace amounts of something that's just residual, or if it's still an issue that never got taken care of. In that case, I don't know what a recourse would be, but obviously something wacky happened there. So I'm not sitting on not doing anything. Obviously, the next steps are down to get us into a bidding process here and minding the cell equipment, the tower equipment that's up there, and renegotiating those to move them up to the top and seeing what the best dollar we can get moving forward is for these contracts. So we are moving as forward as we can with the objective of getting the tower done in some way, shape, or form middle of next year.
But he's moving forward with the assumption there is lead at this point.
The current, these analysis that was done by the firm that we had met with months ago there was that there is some lead in and out, they believe. you know, it's obviously we have water quality reports we submit that test for this stuff. So it is not creating an issue in terms of we're spiking a number anywhere. It's just a question of when we do the handling of the internals and externals of the tank, the tower, we have to be mindful of it and tent it possibly if there's external, for instance, and that can be very costly. So that's why I want to make sure we're not going to be wasting $300,000 for something that really wasn't there ultimately. And be, you know, I think it's worth a little pause there, but at the same time telling Don to continue at least getting his packaging somewhat together here.
How is the, you know, if the potential is there is lead and we have to mitigate it, how now is the cost estimate compared to just replacement with a new one?
Still way off. Still it's 2 to 1, basically. Yep. Understood what you're suggesting, but yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but we're still, it's probably $2.8 to $3 million to replace. It's about 1.38, 1.4 under this approach. If the lead situation, worst case scenario exists in that scenario, rather. So, anything else I can do for you?
Thank you, Frank.
I try. I swear I do. Sidewalk law. Ben, take it away. I've been talking enough here.
So I sent you guys a very rough draft of a sidewalk law that takes us in a different direction, a different model than what we've had up to now. And the reason I did that and the reason people on the board are interested in that is that the current model really hasn't fixed the problem over many decades in terms of improving our sidewalk network. The network continues to deteriorate, and everyone acknowledges that our sidewalks are in poor condition. So the new approach, it basically relieves the burden of sidewalk repair or replacement or installation from the property owner to the village. And in that way, it takes the cost off the property owners. It can be very cost prohibitive. This came out towards the end of our discussion about our previous sidewalk draft, where there's disagreement about whether we should be requiring property owners who don't have a sidewalk in when there's a gaps to install a sidewalk. And it became very clear to everyone that there was an agreement on that, and it was mostly or entirely due to the cost of doing that. And the only way we're going to address that is if we're going to take responsibility. So so I put forward this draft. Liz is working on some numbers to look at what we could raise. And again, it's going to alleviate the burden, the severe burden. You know, it can cost hundreds or thousands of dollars to fix or replace sidewalks. The other great advantage, there's 2 other great advantages of having the village do it, is it can be done in a planful way, where with a known amount of money annually, the village can create a plan that says we are going to prioritize the most important areas for sidewalk improvement year after year, rather than just waiting to see who has the ability financially to volunteer to fix their sidewalk in just random areas throughout the village, as it's done now. So it can be done in a very planful way. And another great advantage is it'll put us in a very good position for grants, because we'll have skin in the game, and it'll avoid the whole issue of whether there's we're gifting people, you know, if we do their sidewalks, are we gifting them where other people who aren't covered by the grant have to pay for their own. So it puts us in a very clear position to potentially get a lot of grant money for sidewalks. So those are some advantages. You know, if a current model was working, I wouldn't be looking to another model, but it's pretty much universally acknowledged to not be working, and hasn't worked. So in addition to, you know, just putting more money at the problem, we actually want to try to solve the problem. So so the request is to ask our legal counsel to take this draft and take it to the next level where, where it's ready, whatever the next draft is, moving down this pathway, and in the same period, explore the ins and outs of what this would require from the village. And so this is just the beginning. We don't have all the answers, but other villages have done this. It is doable. Other towns have done it. And so we'd like to explore the possibilities and try to see if we can actually fix the sidewalk challenge.
From page 45 of the final pedestrian bicycle master plan, quote, the village code also states the sidewalks constructed to the appropriate village standards can be reimbursed at a rate of $2.50 per square foot of sidewalk and curbing with proper receipts and billing information. The program is intended to help offset the cost of the sidewalk construction and repair borne by the property owner. Skipping. To further incentivize property maintenance and repair, the village could increase the reimbursement amount or enforce a sidewalk maintenance policy and begin levying fees for substandard sidewalks. As cost of materials has increased, the village may wish to reevaluate the reimbursement program. In other words, the 250 was archaic. And we know now, after talking to some folks, that because of the fact that we've been talking about raising the reimbursement rate, contractors locally have advised village residents, village property owners to hold off redoing their sidewalks because they assume that it's going to turn into a 50% reimbursement. And that was what we've been talking about for the last year and change. And so I'm not sure how we got from there to take over the whole darn thing. On Saturday night, I think it was, I got it yesterday, Ben, you had proposed a fee schedule for assessment or benefit assessment schedule, I think you call it, for what it would cost residents for this. And so before we talk legal, I think we have to talk reality here for a second about what will this cost folks to do. Your numbers were for property owners without sidewalks, $50 tax. For property owners with single family home, $100, and it would escalate from there up to $500 for I think 8 or 10 plus units. Commercial lots, $300 a year. And so there were a couple other things. I asked you today what you believe the amount of money you would gain from that system would be. And this afternoon, you stated that Liz has an estimate of about $200,000 a year is what your email read. So I said to you at the time, I thought you were joking, to be honest with you, because $200,000 a year, when we put it on top of the $50,000 we've currently apportioned, if we as a village are taking on what you're suggesting, currently with $50,000 available for reimbursement, that means $100,000 worth of sidewalks could be done without dipping into our budget further than what we've figured this year. 50% of 100,000 is the 50,000 for reimbursement. So there it is. When we take over sidewalks, we have to pay prevailing wage. Prevailing wage, I think you estimated was about a 50% addition on something like this. I decided to go in the 40% range, just to be conservative with figures. So that $100,000 of sidewalk that we could have property owners do and get reimbursed for is now $140,000 instead of $100,000. Then on top of that, we're putting in a new level of taxation or a new assessment, benefit assessment that's got to be handled internally, that's administrative. And right at the worst time of year for us, because it's with taxes and with water, which is already a huge June issue, but we handle it, we get it done in the office, and thanks to our staff for all their hard work to do that this year. It was obviously challenging with all the transitions we had in staff and everything else. So thank you to everybody for working hard on that. So there's that, and there's also somebody to monitor this every year in the DPW position. So you probably need about 1.5, so full-time and a part-time additional staff members to do this new program, this new system. That's about $80,000 a year for benefits for the full-timer and salary for the full and part-time. So now you're up to $220,000 to take care of that $100,000 of sidewalks that we just talked about in the first place. Then you're taking on the insurance risk, because if the village is taking over the sidewalks, You can't pass on our negligence to a property owner. That just wouldn't work. Whether or not you could do it legally, it wouldn't pass much muster from our residents or property owners to do that to them. That's probably another, give or take, at least $30,000 of insurance per year. So that $100,000 of sidewalks that we were just talking about is now a $250,000 expense. If you think that we're going to just need $200,000 from this to accomplish this new approach, you basically did no more sidewalks than what we were figuring on in the first place and created an administrative nightmare for the village to get nothing in addition. It doesn't take care of eminent domain or property addition that we have to go out and purchase property if we're not in the right of way. It doesn't handle additional sidewalk generally. It just puts us back to where we should have been in the first place, where if we go out, change the reimbursement rate, advertise the fact this is a great time for everybody to go out and do their sidewalk now because we've enhanced our reimbursement finally 3 years after the pedestrian bicycle master plan, or 2.5 years set to do it. That would be the thing to do here and see how it works for a little bit before you go and tax the world. I don't understand, and I said this earlier, for instance, why should a business be paying 3 times as much as Liz or you in a single family home situation when they have 1/3 the frontage of sidewalk compared to a homeowner? Yet there's these businesses or these property owners where there's businesses are going to subsidize your sidewalks?
Well,
That doesn't make sense.
The thinking was, and again, these are initial numbers, and of course, your numbers that you came up with in an hour will need to be explored. We're certainly not going to take them at face value without research. But the 300, for example, you know, there's a tax write-off, of course, if you're a landlord, commercial landlord, and those businesses use their sidewalks a lot more than single-family homes. So that was sort of the rationale there. But people should realize, while it's $100 a year, you're not going to have to shell out at any point $2,000 to fix. So it'll take 20 years for you to pay $2,000 at $100 a year.
How long does the sidewalk last?
So if it lasts 20 years,
Sidewalks
You
last
will-
20 to 30 years.
you will never, you will come out ahead in terms of the total cost that you pay, and you will never have to dip in your bank account and deplete it to the cost of thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's a big advantage. And the other piece is, you know, we almost passed that other law, but there's severe disagreement about whether we could require people who don't have sidewalks to put sidewalks in. And without that piece, we will never get to a cohesive network of sidewalks. And it just laid bare this, the Achilles heel of the current model, which is enforcement. We will, because I don't blame any mayor for being reluctant to require someone to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars of their own money to fix their sidewalks. It has never happened, and I just don't see it happening. So this is an attempt to actually fix the problem. You're right, we're, you know, this is the first pass at the numbers. We do have to look at all the costs and see where we are. But again, it is a very much stronger position in terms of planning and really focusing on the high need areas, and also puts us in much better position to get $1 million grants, which could make all the difference.
We have 22 miles of streets in the village of Ballston Spa, which is over 110,000 linear feet. 2 sides of every road, let's say, is 220,000 linear feet. Now, let's say we have 50% coverage of sidewalk on our roads, which is give or take. You throw out Colonial Hills, for instance, you throw out intersections where there's no sidewalk, et cetera. Let's say we have 50%, just for argument's sake. And I looked at a pedestrian bicycle master plan, see if they had linear feet of sidewalk. Or
We do have that,
And what's the number?
16 miles of sidewalk.
We have 16 miles of sidewalk, so
But we
more than I
could-
would actually would have estimated.
No, but we could look at a goal in the more immediate future of getting one complete ADA compatible sidewalk
Let me-
on the
let-
side of
let
the
me-
street.
let me
So
finish
that would
that.
cut that
Let
in
me,
half.
let me finish. Using just, we'll stick with my number for the time being. It's give or take, not far off from what you're saying. 110,000 square feet of sidewalk, linear feet, give or take, is probably what the number ends up being once you put in the gaps that don't exist in the 16 mile. So 110,000 square feet divided by 30 years, let's say sidewalks last 30 years, and now we've got to replace them every 30 years, is about 3,667 linear feet of sidewalk that we have to take care of each year. To use a 10-year plan, give or take, you're looking at 36,667 linear feet over 10 years. You do the math, you're going to end up around $800,000 a year just for sidewalk, not talking personnel, not talking insurance costs, nothing. So the numbers that you're looking at in terms of if your perfect world of trying to get sidewalks to the moon in the areas where they're going to be stomached were to occur, again, not throwing in the eminent domain approach or purchasing a property approach outside of the rights of way, you're looking at well over what you're suggesting in that benefit assessment report, well over. And that's what I am warning you against before going to legal with this. Legal ain't your problem ultimately. Your problem is that your numbers don't jive. And so until your numbers jive and the taxpayers are allowed to hear what they're going to be paying, or the property owners through this assessment approach, I don't know how you justify wasting Carla's time to go fix something that you wrote as a law when she's got 30 other laws they have to handle right now for us that need to get done too. Get the numbers together. Take your time and do it the right way.
I'm going to use Voltaire again. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And in this case, this would be for the greater public good. We had clear indication and public comment that people don't want to outlay thousands of dollars. So what I foresee is less sidewalk being done than would be done under this benefits assessment. Even if we won't be able to keep up with as they deteriorate, we will have a significant improvement. We already know, based on when this reimbursement rate was a competitive rate, virtually no one did an outlay for doing their sidewalks. It was few and far between. So what I see is we'll be destined to do less sidewalks with a 50% reimbursement plan because people just can't afford $3,500. And by the way, the current code that this was based on is there was a $3,000 cap. Now I think the mayor was looking at a $3,500 cap, but that's for 50 foot of frontage. There could be people that pay $4,000 or $5,000 and they're simply not going to be able to do it. And so they won't do it. Now we create an enforcement issue and we're going to force people to fix their sidewalks. That is in the code. So we're going to force people to spend thousands of dollars. This doesn't do that. This says you pay in as you go, and over time, you'll get that money at a much more easily affordable rate than thousands of dollars in 1 year hit. You'll have 100 or however the schedule is each year building up to a point where your sidewalks could be repaired or replaced or installed. And the funny thing is in the code we currently wrote, we say compel people to replace their sidewalk if necessary, which is actually more expensive than installing a new one. So I'm not really sure on the resistance here. I looked at these numbers briefly. I do know that we need about probably to get sidewalks to a 3. If you're going from a 1 to 5 rating to a 3 or better, we're probably going to need about $3 million.
Or than that.
But it also depends. Again, let's not have the perfect be the enemy of the good. This would vastly improve over, hey guys, you're going to have to spend $3,000 or $4,000 this year. Well, I don't have it. And then we create an enforcement issue, which we eliminate an enforcement issue with this schedule. There isn't have to be an enforcement because we are going to take care of it. I think this is the only way to create sidewalk continuity and pedestrian safety. I think the volunteerism has already been shown by the past reimbursement rate to be ineffective. So I don't know, just raising it up to current inflation rate isn't actually going to change anything. So I don't see this as a non-starter. And also the code that was originally worked on, I said again and again for years, there has to be a mechanism for installation. And it was avoided and ignored and avoided and ignored. And ultimately, that's pedestrian safety. When there's no sidewalk and there's a gap, that means people, kids going to school, are forced in the roadway, which exponentially increases their chances of being hit by a motor vehicle. And I couldn't live with myself if we didn't create a program, which, by the way, we have limited means anyways. Even if we do a 50% reimbursement, we're never going to get to that completion. It'll take 50 years to do it. So it will happen faster. And because there's only so many people that are going to volunteer to spend thousands of dollars. And that's just a simple fact. But if you have a slow incremental increase over time, that's manageable for a lot of people. And if our true goal here is pedestrian safety, we have to fill in the gaps. Otherwise, this is just for show.
Sean, walk with me on one thing. So let's say it's $800,000 a year, as I'm saying, okay?
It doesn't have to be.
Well, it either
Those
is.
numbers are not accurate. You can do things over time, and as long as we have an established plan.
Well, either we're doing it right or we're not. You just said that basically you're trying to basically do it all at once.
No,
in that
that
manner.
is not what I'm saying. That's what you're saying.
Well, no, I'm telling you, I'm basically doing a 30-year replacement sidewalk approach. It's $800,000
I
a year.
understand that, and we may not be able to do a full cycle.
So $800,000
But we
a
might be
year.
able to do 75%. In the current volunteerism, we won't even hit 50%.
At $800,000 a year, it's 40% of your taxes. 40% of your tax intake right now is
Just don't believe that.
$800,000. I'm sorry.
I don't
Yeah,
believe that
we would need that.
I will
data,
happily-
Spreadsheet calculator.
Okay,
Otherwise,
where's yours?
let's-
Where's
let's
yours?
just work
Where's
together.
yours? Where's yours?
That is a spreadsheet.
No, it's
So-
not. That is a list of fees with
Well,
nothing
I'm
behind it.
sure Liz can provide
I
a
think the
spreadsheet.
point here, both sides are saying we have hypothetical numbers, so what are we actually talking about? I don't know, so none of us really have it together to even have this discussion. It's kind of proving the point.
Well,
Hold on,
ultimately,
sir, I'm happy to listen to you after I'm finished. I actually had a question. This structure of the tax schedule here. You have commercial and then you, for instance, you have multiple, residential units. Would you then presume to charge, like, for instance, a building on Front Street that has both, mixed use, it has commercial on the bottom and then residential on top, would you charge both? Is that what you would presume to do? Or I'm just trying to understand this
I don't know.
better.
I would have to ask Liz. 'Cause you-
So that this is scheduled, not.
Use a microphone.
Sure.
Yeah, I did a preliminary assessment, and it's based on the county assessment database from 2020, because that's the one I downloaded a few years ago. I'm waiting to get the up-to-date one, which I was told by Anna Stanko over in Real Property that she could get me in July. So hopefully maybe I can get it this week and redo these numbers, more accurately. But for ballpark, no, the mixed use projects would pay the higher rate. So see, that was the commercial. If they have 10 or more units, they pay 500. If they have less than 10 units and they have commercial, they pay the 300. So they're not double paying. And really, when you look at these numbers, $300. That's not a huge amount of money
It's-
for a business.
It's a basis
$100.
of where the wrong number, Liz. You're giving people the false sense of what the
Excuse me, I'm
number
not
is.
done talking.
I wasn't done talking.
Oh, sorry. Give it back.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this is not a matter, I get what you're saying, but for instance, well, I'm glad to hear we're not going to double charge some of these property owners, which would be a little silly, honestly. And again, just reiterating that no one has actual figures, so I think we're prematurely talking about this. If we're just talking about the numbers part, I do have questions about the actual written policy, the proposed policy, but this proposed taxes, I mean, I know you guys think that, oh, this is just talking at least about residential people, right? For some property owners who are in fixed incomes, yeah, I mean, I know you don't think that, and hopefully no one's feeling that type of crunch where, you know, $100 or so is not painful, but it could be painful for some people. So we do have to think about this a little more considerately. Not to say that, you know, installing is not expensive, but there's a lot of things we got to look at as far as, you know, potentially how this is going to impact individual property owners, especially those on fixed incomes, it's those who might be lower income but happen to own property in our village. That happens, and that's wonderful that there's home ownership for them. Also, again, I because we don't have numbers, I'm inclined to think this is going to be very expensive, and we're not even, again, if Frank's, you know, not even touching the cost as far as if we do have to use eminent domain, which I really hope we would not have to, any cost for personnel, and just honestly, our DPW is working very hard as is, and I just really would like to hear Jeff's input as to whether this is kind of even feasible at this time, and what he thinks if this is what this board wants to go for, what kind of staffing would be needed. I just don't think we have. It's a lot to consider, and I'm currently not very comfortable with this.
And remember that Wade Beltramo from NICOM, you asked if the intended new sidewalk construction is not within the existing right-of-way, old village boundaries. What are our alternatives? Easement, eminent domain? And the answer that you had summarized was depends on existing agreements and easements and will require verification that the property is not in the right-of-way. You can't force someone to put a sidewalk on their property. The village can claim ownership of a sidewalk on private property by prescription when the private street, including the sidewalk, has been used continuously as a public street or sidewalk for at least 10 years, and the local government has continuously maintained and repaired the alleged street or sidewalk and thus assumed control during the period of time in question. But as you point out in the question itself, is eminent domain the only way to force it if they're not willing to do it? And the answer is yeah.
Again, you're bringing up something that is probably a fraction of the sidewalks. I mean, we've got the actual surveyed maps for the oldest part of the village, and all of those, you know, we've got them.
Okay, and what do they show?
I'm not an engineer, I'm not going to say, but we can look at this. These are all issues that we need to look at, but I think this alternative is an alternative that other communities have adopted. And it works for them because I think Corinth takes care of all their sidewalks, both the.
No, they're based on a reimbursement. In fact, the code provision in I that's being considered tonight is actually Corinth's law with actual inflation and a limitation. I took it directly from the village of Corinth, as Carly can tell you.
The town then, anyways. But there are other communities that have done this, so it is quote doable, and everything that Ben said is true. I mean, are you going to enforce that people that have non-ADA compatible or ADA sidewalks, are you going to send them a notice and say, you've got to fix that sidewalk? Because Mayor Woolbright made a commitment that once we got a new sidewalk law, he would enforce it.
That's what we were trying to do in what we were just doing for a year. And you basically told Carla today, you're setting it out to pasture. A year's worth of work to try to give an enforcement system, a reimbursement system that made sense. and actually doing the things that the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, which you throw in my face every 10 minutes, it seems like, but for some reason on this one, you don't want to follow it.
Well, I think the fact that the proof that enforcement is not going to happen is the refusal to put into this current version of the law, the one that we were working on, the requirement for people to put in sidewalks if they're missing. That was just like a no, red light, not going to happen. And that needs to happen. That needs to be part of the enforcement.
So you're going to eminent domain them.
We don't know that, do we? If we have right-of-way maps. we
Ballston
may have
Avenue
right-of-way.
absolutely would be. We know that for sure. And Ballston
No, we
Avenue's-
don't. And you're speculating and it's.
I'm not
conjecture, right?
speculating.
Have
Sean,
you looked at the maps?
Yes, I actually-
You're an engineer.
yes, I actually have, Sean, because I've had to look at these streets before for other
And
projects.
you
Thank
know
you.
what the right-of-way is.
Yeah, it's not more than 5 feet and there's power poles in the way right now in Ballston Avenue. So
Ballston
there's your
Avenue
answer.
Has a
So now
sidewalk. It has a
Well,
sidewalk.
if power poles are there, then that means it's in a right-of-way. Because power poles cannot be put on
And
private
they have,
property.
and they have permanent easements in our right of way. So why,
Right, but
so,
we
so
tell
where do you move
them
them
where
to?
to put it.
Sean and everyone, just a reminder, let's talk. It's getting
well,
very passionate over there and.
What's happening is a
let's
lot of
speak lower,
numbers
please.
are being thrown out with no validity.
Those
And nothing to
numbers
back
are your
them up.
taxpayers' money, Sean. They are your taxpayers' dollars and cents.
We would be saving taxpayers.
No, you
money.
wouldn't.
Can
Yes,
we
will.
end this
How?
conversation?
With
We need
administrative,
to
excuse
take
me.
a vote.
No, we don't.
Oh, we need
Yeah,
to
let's go,
agree.
let's go, I'm done.
There's
I'm
no
not-
question to be called. This isn't a
Yeah.
motion.
That we're going to ask Carla to work on the draft.
A majority of the board
So-
disagrees,
So a majority of the
let's
board,
make this a top priority.
a majority of the board has no idea what the numbers are, has no idea where the rights of way are.
Again, that is irrelevant. She can review the language.
It's
and see if
irrelevant.
a legal.
It's irrelevant.
No,
So
we have
the fee
started.
schedule has nothing
Sean,
to do with the
everybody, please, like,
code. I'm just speaking the truth. Bernie,
You're-
and if
you're
you don't
yelling.
like it, I'm sorry.
why, I'm talking with you.
Can-
Like, you are screaming about this, and I appreciate that. My other colleagues on the board, Ben and Liz, thank you for talking mostly about this. So it just really, this is devolving in a way that, like, I wanted to come here, learn more about this and have a conversation. Yeah, we don't agree, but there's no reason to be like shouting about it.
Okay, well.
Please be,
I'll-
I'm serious. It's just not productive and it's just a waste of everyone's time, including yours. So I don't know, we're still talking about math and numbers, or can I?
So
I have a
Liz, would you like to have Carl at least look at the language? since the
I
fee
wasn't
scale is
finished. You
entirely
keep
separate?
interrupting.
Would you like to have her look at the language?
Bernadette is got the
Yes.
floor at this point.
All right, go ahead, Bernadette.
So Ben, you drafted this, the changes. I had a question on, couple questions. Section, under the procedure part, the 174-3, you cite New York Village law. Maybe Carla, what does that mean, that whole paragraph about local improvements and apportionment? I
I got this Saturday night, so I
Okay.
have not looked at this at all.
can you explain that to me, what that means?
Bring it up. So where is this?
It's, you have it under procedure, it's 174-3, then it's quoted New York State Village Law 2200, local improvements and apportionment.
Yeah.
I read that and I think I have decent reading comprehension, but I guess I don't understand what it means in this context. So could you explain that?
Well, basically, I sort of put it this is intended to be a draft for Carla's review and improvement. So the first paragraph under 174.3 is the short version from either Mount Kisco or Skaneateles, saying how they would do the procedure for developing a plan and also assessments. And then when I looked at New York Village law, which state law, state village law, it was a little more detailed. And rather than me pretending to be a lawyer, I decided to just dump it all in there and have Carla take it away from there. The state law is more detailed, and it seems to have, when you're doing this, and what this speaks to is the procedure for creating a plan and also creating the assessments. And you have to have a public hearing. And then the second piece seems to indicate you have to actually notify every homeowner or landowner that there's going to be a benefit assessment, and they have to have an opportunity to respond to that. So that's basically what those
Well,
two are.
can I just say, I want to try to translate something because having read it, I thought I knew where it was going. And it didn't seem to make sense because it was inconsistent with what his schedule was ultimately. And that's why I was confused about. And so I can see this now that you've explained what your intention was and versus what the language says. Your language is talking about a benefit assessment that is concentrated on an area or a zone, whereas your schedule is intended to cover everybody regardless of where the assessment's applying. And so your language of your code that you put together is inconsistent with your intention of what you're trying to do. And so this is kind of like way off the rails with
No,
respect to
it's a first draft that, but we
what
need
is-
a lawyer
what
to
do
go
you-
through and.
what do you
and
intend?
make correct.
But hold on, what
This
do you
is
intend? Is
What
the
we
question.
intend, yes, here's what we intend, I think. We intend to have a plan for the whole village to schedule of sidewalk improvements and installations and replacements that are prioritized for it to meet the top needs first, and then over time to meet additional needs. So we can start, for example, on Malta Ave where there's missing sidewalks, or the central business district where the sidewalks are
Okay.
needed.
I
Anyway, so
got an idea.
It
I got an
includes
idea.
the whole, and then the assessment also would be what we drafted, some version of that. That's just the first draft.
I've got an idea. Because again, what you wrote and what you intended are two entirely different things right now.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
But anyway, it is a draft.
as a lawyer who tries not to be a lawyer in this position, it's two different things. And so I think what your best bet is because as she told you, Carla, that is earlier on today, trying to revise your law is going to take her twice as long as trying to write one from scratch.
Yeah, I really don't believe that. But anyway, no one writes a law from scratch.
Oh, my God.
All right? Nobody that comes from other laws. And when you look at the ethics law, Rensselaer and Cahoes have the exact same ethics law. Somebody copied from somebody. So this is copying. I didn't write anything. I copied from existing laws
Multiple laws.
and the state laws. Yes. And so Carla can start on a new document if she wants to, but she has a sense of what we're intending.
So the idea, and she doesn't, is what she just said. The idea is, why don't you put into words in an email, and maybe we all get to comment on that, what your intention is, what you want to accomplish, who you want to make pay for it, if you want that fee schedule to be representative of it, and let her from there begin to scope out how to approach that from a legal perspective.
That's in the, all right. Here's what I
Hold on,
suggest.
let me finish number two.
Well,
Part
I've
two
been
at the same
answering that
time
one.
is working to actually find out the numbers, because the numbers matter here. So if you really want her to start doing something, using your code probably isn't gonna give her much of a good steering wheel on this, but telling her what your intentions are and how you want to accomplish it, that's how she can actually go.
This is what I'm going to suggest. I suggest, Carla, read what I sent, and then you come up with a set of questions for us of what's unclear. That, I think, would be the most efficient way to move this forward. You come up with a set of questions after reading this of what our intent is, because there's a lot of intent that is very clear in this draft.
May I add a question? Well, since we're talking about questions about your proposal. The second to last page, you start talking about liability or, for damages and injuries. So you're suggesting, I don't know where you got this, if you're saying you got it from other code, from other communities and municipalities. But you're saying your intention is the village to take over the property, the sidewalks, installation and all of that. But then in the same breath, we're saying that, but we're not going to be responsible for any. It's kind of confusing. There's like a conflict that I don't understand.
Right. So again,
how that's even possible.
So legal counsel can also explain this to everybody. My understanding is that we are not liable for a sidewalk problem until someone sends us in writing a complaint about that
So we're
sidewalk.
saying we're taking,
And then-
this says you're taking over it, so.
Right, and then we are liability is covered as long as we have a plan for improvement.
Carla, what would be helpful for you?
Can I make one
Besides
comment about
going to
the-
another municipality?
about the liability? We're in the middle of doing an ADA transition plan. And that relates directly to this issue because part of the assessment is of the sidewalks.
Yeah, but
And-
ADA is only a part of the equation.
Excuse me, can I finish? All right, so we will have a database of the condition and a plan to address those sidewalks, those curb ramps, and those crosswalks. That's going to be the product. We can use that information to do a plan for sidewalk by prioritizing areas and looking at the areas that are, that need the sidewalk. So it's additional information. And because we have an ADA plan, we plan on addressing these issues. That provides us, from what I understand, some protection on liability.
It's going to cost you more. That's what Vanderveer's email basically stated to you, that your current system of liability deflection in our code is the staple of what he teaches other municipalities to use. The Village of Ballston Spa's liability protections in our code are what NYMER actually teaches other municipalities to do to protect themselves from liability. So if you think that insurance premiums will not go up for the village by adopting this approach, you're wrong. In fact, there are municipalities that tried this. I think Catskill is one, he had told, or that somebody from our insurer had told us, Marshall and Sterling, and they almost got dropped entirely from insurance because nobody wanted to take on the liability related to a system-wide sidewalk liability structure.
There's lots of municipalities that have responsibility.
Yeah, there's
for the
multiple
sidewalk.
precedents.
And
so
the
that's
question
irrelevant.
is did Catskill have?
The
have
cost
a
is not
plan?
irrelevant. The cost is not irrelevant.
NYMER also said that as long as you have a clear and developed plan, every municipality has limited means. They can't fix everything all at once. It's the same thing we use for highways. A highway in poor condition, as long as you have a plan and a schedule to fix it, if somebody, busts a tire or busts an axle, you say, well, we have that programmed in with definitive plan that's been adopted. There's no liability. That's how it works. So, and Representative Nymer told you as much.
There's no liability. That's how it works. So if somebody gets hurt on our sidewalk that we didn't maintain in time, there's no liability.
So as long as you have an established plan scheduled to fix that, every municipality has limited needs. You can't fix everything all at once.
I would like a legal opinion on that one. I will be honest.
Well, let's end this conversation.
Well,
and
hold
turn
on.
this
I just
over-
requested,
Can-
I just
excuse
requested a
me.
legal opinion. Can I get the legal opinion on this?
I think we should turn this over to Carla. Let her go through it. As Ben said, do the questions, raise the issues, if there are issues on liability, et cetera, et cetera. Let's not waste more time here discussing all these details.
Yeah, we'll talk again. No, we'll talk.
Put it on the agenda list.
Well, we've been discussing.
We'll
it.
talk again. I think a good outcome of this conversation is ask Carla to read this draft and come up with a set of questions.
But she can't come up with questions if she doesn't know what your intentions are.
I don't know why you don't know what our intentions are. Our intentions are to have the village take over responsibility for the sidewalks and do it through a benefit assessment.
Seeing that she's typing it, so speak slowly so she can get it all.
It's right in the law. It's like the first sentence. Let's see. Purpose. It is the goal of this legislation to implement and maintain within the village of Ballston Spa a continuous network of ADA compliant sidewalks in order to encourage pedestrian use, enhance pedestrian safety, increase access to community life for those who do not drive, and to relieve traffic congestion and exhaust. And sidewalk and curb construction, repair and replacement will become the responsibility of the village of Ballston Spa. New sidewalks shall be constructed of concrete for New York State Department of Transportation standards and specifications. DPW supervisor and board of trustees may include construction or repair of sidewalk curb cuts and curb accessibility ramps and the local improvements to be made in the village, et cetera, et cetera. So it is quite explicit in what is planned and not planned. I am sure there are places that need clarification. And so we're asking Carla to go through and dig those out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carla Bittner, who we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes.
I just want to verify that the sidewalk law that was drafted, that's local law 2, I believe, of 2023, that went through a public hearing, is no longer going to be used for any draft purposes. So I do not, I take that law and I don't use that law at all.
Actually, I put significant sections of that law into
No,
this law.
not my question. The law that was, the actual law that was there, that we used for the public hearing. I'm just not gonna, that law's dead. I just want to make sure I understand, just so I know which law I'm looking at. So that law's dead.
I don't think I'd call it dead. I'd say put it to the side.
Well,
Because now we're going to be looking at alternative A versus alternative B.
so that's my question. So we have the public hearing, so that law is not moving forward right now.
Right.
So it's dead. That right now, that law is dead. So the next law that the board has requested me to review, that was drafted by Ben,
Local law number 5, Round Raleigh,
I
I think.
would have to figure this out, but that's irrelevant. You want me to review that law with the understanding that the purpose is to have the village take over responsibility of all sidewalks and pay by benefit and assessment.
Yes, and
Okay,
it also,
so that, hang on.
Yep.
So, and you want me to go through what you cobbled together from a variety of different laws, which I agree with you, Ben. You don't initially draft, well, I disagree with you. You do sometimes draft a law from scratch. You do, and I have.
okay.
So I disagree with that. I also disagree that it's going to take, that it's not going to take me twice as long to edit something, but I disagree with that because I've been doing it for 20 years. But we'll ignore that for the moment because I want to make sure that as I do this and I point out my concerns, I'm on the right path. So what I would propose is you give me some time to review what you put together. You give me your source material. You give me any emails you got from anybody with respect to how you got that language together, including the ones amongst yourselves, so that I can see the intent, like the legislative history, all of that stuff. That's how you create the law. I need to see the source material that was used in.
I think you have the draft laws, but I
I
don't know,
want
is
the ones
Liz,
you used, the ones you and
Yeah.
Liz and Sean looked at.
they were
over-
sent to everyone, but I'll send them to you again.
And you also have the material
It's
sent
from Wade.
from Wade, who suggested
It's all
that
from Wade.
if we are interested in this type of law, that we should involve yourself, that it's now time to work with
Well,
our attorney.
With all due respect, it should have been time to work with your attorney first, but I mean, I know how that, I know how you, I know how you have been. And that's fine, and it is what it is. I will review it. And I will give you whatever comments I have on it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the meantime, who's going to dive into the numbers of it all?
Well, Liz is very good at diving into numbers, so I volunteer Liz.
We'll work on it together.
Okay.
Okay, well, I gave you. a
But
list of-
Frank,
I
your
gave-
numbers also should be shared. Like
I
put
gave
them-
you a list of questions earlier.
Yeah, put your numbers on paper, Frank, and we should have a set of, a comparable set of numbers that we look at from all sides.
Well, I want to reach your intention, to be honest with you, because I'm not even sure I understand fully what you're intending based on reading the law, reading the fee schedule, and listening to you. Yeah, well, yes and no. I get it. I get it. Yeah, that's the problem. So I don't know what to even go on anymore, but either way, I'm still going to be proposing tonight because we should be doing something in the meantime to encourage people to replace their sidewalks if they so desire to replace their sidewalk. and reward them for the fact that they're doing it the right way instead of $250 a square foot. Otherwise, nothing's gonna get done between now and whenever the heck this thing gets passed, if it gets passed ever. So that's still on the table tonight for discussion later. Public comment, who wants to go? Yes, Gina.
Gina Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane. There's many of us, and I really wasn't going to speak tonight because I was going to try to shut up for once, but the sidewalk thing's got me a little concerned. There's many of us in this village that played by the rules. We put our sidewalks in. My family didn't even get 1 penny reimbursement, and we put a sidewalk not only in front of our property, but we covered the museum all the way to the top of the hill on Fairground Ave. We paid for it in full. Now you're asking me and my family to pay for somebody else's sidewalks on top of that. We paid to put them in. We didn't take reimbursement because I believe you said, Ben, because we're rich, and maybe that's so. Rich is a relative term, but there's a lot of people out there that aren't and play by the rules and put in their sidewalk. And now you're asking them to pay an additional tax so that everybody can have sidewalks. So my question is, are you going to listen to your constituents? And if they're not happy with this, what are you going to do about it? Number two, because this is a tax, and it's a tax, is this available to be put up to a permissive referendum? It's a legal question, Carla.
I don't know right now,
Okay,
but I can look into that.
okay. I would really like the answer to that because I think that it needs to go that way. It needs to go to a vote of the residents and the people that are property owners in this village. Thank you.
With the proper numbers, I think is the important part too. And so hopefully we get that. Anybody else in the room? Yes, Mary.
Mary Price Bush, 105 McLean Street. I also have some concerns with the sidewalk law, and right now it seems very vague, and I know there's work to be done. I feel that you're also putting the extra burden on DPW. They're strapped, and to expect them to take care of our sidewalks is a little of a reach. The incremental increases in the tax, how quickly is that going to increase? Is it going to be annual? How high is that tax going to go for residents who cannot afford it? As far as eminent domain, I believe the Fifth Amendment says the government cannot take private property for public use without compensation. So is this going to cost the village even more money at, the village expense to gain the property for the sidewalks? I think maybe a mailing might help, going out to the residents again and asking their opinion. Do you want the reimbursement? Do you want the sidewalk tax? See what their feelings are. See how, if they have any suggestions on how this can be solved. One other thing I have is that due to the fact that the contract agreement couldn't be reached between Ask and the village, the CEO of Ask has unfortunately stepped away from Family Fun Day. And the events task force, we met tonight right before coming here. We decided to continue to plan and execute and reimagine Family Fun Day, including an evening concert with the refrigerators. And we're also looking for any volunteers who want to work hard and long to make this a great cause. So it's a lot of fun. Contact us.
Yeah, who should they contact or how?
That's a good question.
Any of us.
Any of us,
We're
yeah.
all on Facebook.
Yeah.
So Mary Price Bush might be a good person to look up on Facebook and message, for instance, or do you have an email that they could use?
Mary.price.bush@gmail.
Mary.price.bush@gmail.com.
Yes, and we do have, this just is new, so we have a lot of details to work out.
Well, thank you very much for taking it on.
Yeah, thank you for continuing with the effort, and I'm more than willing to volunteer as well. But I'm glad and thankful that you're willing to do it even without ASC's involvement. I'm a little confused because amongst ourselves, we never came up with a contract, a draft contract. So it seems premature for him to step away. We haven't offered him a contract yet.
Well, Mark was made aware of the terms that you were looking for.
Well, he shouldn't have been because we hadn't agreed to them internally yet.
Right.
Those were internal confidential contract discussions. That was premature.
No,
That should not have been shared with Mark because we hadn't decided. In fact, I asked Carla for her opinion on some of the thoughts I had. I asked her for her opinion on could this happen or not, and I never got a response. It's way too early for Mark to hear anything about our internal discussions. I don't understand how that happened, Frank. Do you have a direct connection to Mark?
Would you give me a second?
Go ahead.
The event's August 20th. What's today's date?
I know, we're way behind, Frank.
Yeah, because of you, Ben, because of all.
Because of me.
Yes, because you want photos and videos in public spaces to become property of the village, among other things, these onerous things that you're asking to
Frank,
happen.
I objected to the idea that what I heard, and this is third hand, that the head of ASCC wouldn't allow people to take photos at a village event on village property. And I think that's wrong. I think anyone should be able to take a photo of a community event. Now, that might be incorrect.
It was.
It was.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. All right, good. So that's an example of where I put something out there and then it gets corrected and goes away, right? Instead of Mark just throwing up his hands and walking away. So anyway, it's too bad he's walking away without us actually talking in any real way and without our board coming to any kind of consensus or reality about what can happen or should happen or might happen. I don't understand how that happened. I don't understand how Mark got any information about our contract internal negotiations.
I'm happy to respond to that. Ben,
Thank you.
I don't know what internal communications you were discussing with respect to Family Fun Day, because you never gave me any information until after Mark decided he did not want to work for the village because he wanted to get paid a specific amount of money and the board was not going to pay him to do it.
Oh, so just the fact that we were talking about a contract is what made him walk away. Is that true? It wasn't
The
this. It wasn't the
cost.
specific
It
negotiation.
was the cost. He wanted X number of dollars. This board was not going to give him X number of dollars. He then said, then I'm not doing it.
Well,
That was the extent of any quote unquote internal
Okay, good.
private communication. I have not.
That's reassuring.
Let me finish, please. I have not breached any attorney-client.
Oh, I'm not saying, I'm not blaming.
You just did.
No,
You just did.
I assumed it was Frank, Carla.
Oh, never
Oh, so
assume.
that's
But-
okay.
But the fact is, Mary said that something about he could not agree to the terms of the
Yes,
contract.
the term was he wanted X amount of
So-
dollars and the board was not going to give him any amount of dollars.
That wasn't even part of our conversation, the dollars. Dollars is old news. He's known for months that he was getting, or ASCC was getting $15,000 or so for Family Fun Day. That is not new information, and it wasn't the topic of a recent, I am talking, Carla. I don't need you to be yelling at me.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy.
The amount of the contract was known, has been known. When did we pass that? In April or May? That's been known for months. If that's the issue, he should have said something a long time ago. My assumption, based on what Mary just said, is that he walked away recently because of a recent conversation around our terms. So I apologize that was a misunderstanding of mine. Now I'm confused by why it took months for him to decide that the money we gave him months ago is not enough.
Can I get a motion for an executive session to discuss a contractual issue with our legal at this point in time?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. For an executive session, we will be out soon.
All right. Everybody outside, it's very nice.
Completely moved.
Oh.
Okay, no action to be taken from that executive session. Thank you for your patience. Anybody else in the room for public comment is where we left things here? Yes, Donna.
I have a question. please.
Sure.
Is this public comment on anything or just? the
Anything,
subject?
anything.
Okay. I gotta find my paper here.
While you're coming up, I just,
Riley, stop stealing Donna's papers.
while you're coming up, I just want to apologize for my harsh tone to Carla. And also, my comments were based on a misunderstanding. There are apparently some conversations that happened that we were not aware of.
Thank you for saying that. Donna, go ahead.
Donna Dardaris, 64 Middle Street. First of all, and I wasn't going to say this, but I just recruited 3 volunteers to help with family friendly. A popular one seems to be a dunk tank with all of the village officers.
I already volunteered, you know that.
I got $1,000.
I've got 3 specific things I wanted to comment on. First, I fully support the stricter enforcement of the speed limit laws. A few weeks ago, I turned on to Bath Street for Route 67. I apparently wasn't going fast enough for the gentleman, and I use the term loosely, behind me. I was going about 20 miles an hour. He pulled up and passed me and raced down to the red light at the corner of Bath and Front Street. I took a picture of his license plate, but was told there's not really much that can be done about it after the fact. To Liz's question about the revenues, speaking from personal experience, a few years ago when I was working in Albany, I got a speeding ticket in a village just outside of Albany, which was notorious for issuing them. I went to court with a friend of mine who was a lawyer. The judge strongly suggested that we meet with the town attorney to discuss our case. My lawyer met and he came out and he said, the judge is going to tell you that you are being charged with illegal parking on the side of the road. And you are going to say, she's going to ask how you plead and you're going to say guilty, Your Honor. And that's going to be it. And I said, but he said, Donna, listen to me. You're going to say, yes, Your Honor. And that's it. Because, and he told me later, speeding revenues go to the state. If it's a parked regulation on the side of the road, then it comes to the village. So that might be an answer about how much revenue.
I suspected that.
But I think that regardless of whether we get a penny of money from it or not, just having people slow down in the village is a good thing. Ben, thank you for mentioning the series of concerts that are going to be at Brookside Museum. This is the 3rd year that the Saratoga County History Center and Brookside Museum have hosted those series of concerts at our facility. It's a great day. You bring your lawn chair. There's absolutely no charge to the public. The 2 winter concerts are new. We're trying them for the first time, and we're anticipating that those are also going to be very popular. And the 3rd thing, I had a question on the proposal that I think Liz put in about the Revenue Advisory Committee charter, and it might just be a case of my not understanding. She says there are 3 sources of revenue, and the first is listed as water and sewer. Then there's a second that says parking revenue, but there is no 3rd that I can see unless you're breaking water and sewer apart and considering them 2 separate sources. I guess because I pay my bill all as one bill, I would think that's just one source. So is there a 3rd source that I'm
No,
not?
that's a typo, unless, we're going to discuss that later.
Okay, and that was all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Stop parking on the wrong side of the road. Anybody else in the house? Right.
No, I'm not gonna grab it. I'm just-
You can
I know
have
that
it.
one's here.
It's okay. It's been a slow weekend.
Forgot my wheelchair. Right out in 16,
Hit that button for me.
November. Okay. Thank you for bringing up about the water tower. I did have a question where we were with that tonight. And also about the sidewalk repair notices for damaged sidewalks. You know, where are we with that? But I see we're trying to address that. Bike lane striping and the Zim Smith Trail connection. Has there been anything done with that at all? You know, I recommended a while ago that we take a look at Broadway in Schenectady, where they have a wonderful system of striping in the road, bikes riding in the same lane. Seems to work, and it's a lot busier streets than what we got. So just haven't heard where we are with that. It's been dragging on for quite a while.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I actually would like
Please
to
do.
address a little bit on this.
Okay.
So a couple months ago, I was asked to a meeting from the county, Jason Kemper, the county planner, Eric Conley was there, some folks that work with the county with the Zim Smith Trail. And the intention of the county, because they're trying to figure out the correct route to get to Saratoga State Park eventually, is to utilize Oak Street, go through and try to find the proper property path on that side of the railroad tracks to go down toward Malta Avenue, across there, eventually try and figure out how to meander, because they're having some property issues with folks that don't want to necessarily give up their property. Stop me for that one before tonight.
Yeah.
But anyway, the county is willing to put essentially signage and accommodation pointing into the village's direction from the Oak Street exit, essentially, in utilizing the underpass, the sidewalk. There's no way to get proper path width and safety and protection that you would assume with the Zim Smith Trail to divert officially in that way. But the county is willing to basically provide some level of accommodation to show the right direction to get to the village and everything that comes with it ultimately. Now, having said that, apparently there is a movement, and this is a fresh situation. I'm having a meeting tomorrow, in fact, with the CHP people. For those that don't know, that's Champlain Hudson power line that's supposed to go from Canada down to Lower Manhattan to provide New York City the power. And originally it was supposed to go through the Hudson River, et cetera, and they diverted it through land areas, and they were using the railroad corridor more or less to accomplish it. The problem is that they can't universally stay on the trains side of things on property lines. And we have at least 3 landowners on Kayleen that will be losing 11 to 14 feet of their backyards if they give up their land, or if eminent domain is taken, which is expected. If they don't give up their land, that's the route they'll go. They've been offered $1,000 each for those 11 to 14 feet in the back. We're having a meeting with CHP tomorrow. In the same light, apparently there's somebody that I'm not going to name that is trying to push for the Zim Smith Trail to follow the easements of the CHPE and to get into the village that way, which essentially means that these folks on Kayleen that would be having the land loss as it is, and even their neighbors who wouldn't, but would be basically, you know, just adjacent to where that path is, would have the Zim Smith Trail going in their backyards in that manner, if that were ever to happen. And so it is a discussion I'm going to be part of tomorrow to hear what in the world is the thinking there. CHP is not saying that's something they want to do, because their easements aren't based on that type of approach when they're getting these easements. So they're not obligated to get a pathway easement, essentially, just an easement to utilize, you know, underground area for their line. So where and how the Zim Smith Trail is going is mainly decided by the county right now, but there's still some people trying to throw some monkey wrenches into the equation. But the county is aware of the desire to at least get some formatting of the Zim Smith Trail connected to the village, and is working with us to do that. It's just a question of to what degree, because of the safety issues that come with that underpass area on High Street.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are they talking about coming up on the west side?
On the west
I mean, if
side,
they go, if they're in Kayleen's backyards, they're on the.
that's what the apparent motion here is, or agenda item is to discuss the
Because
diversion into
I
that
talked
direction.
with Jason also, and he said the reason they're not going up on our side, which actually would be nice for the village, because then we could just do a connection in and get people downtown, was because up at the other end, then what are they gonna do? You know, because it to connect into the sewer.
The only logical way to do it is basically back at the Curtis area to divert into that direction, because otherwise, how do you get across the railroad to do it? And so you're almost in for a penny and for a pound if you're gonna go in that route. You would have to get an all-in for everybody that would be affected. It's not gonna be easy to do it. And these people on Kayleen, I gotta be honest, would you want that? Now you're already losing 11, 14 feet of your backyard, and you're gonna have people basically traveling through. You got people that will lose trees in the situation. One person has
Yeah.
a shed on the fence line that would have to be moved up because you can't have a permanent structure over where they're gonna be.
Well, the original design actually by, I forget who did it, when we did the complete streets, was an idea to take, you know, those sidewalks basically aren't used underneath the bridge. Nobody, you know, walks on them.
It's not connecting much of anything right now.
yeah. Is to remove them and then create a corridor on one side or the other with enough room for both people to walk and to bike. And that would connect them up to Hyde, and then
I don't
we
think-
could take them in.
I think they don't have enough width to even do that, is what they've landed on, because those sidewalks are narrow as it is. And so even removing them wouldn't give you the safety measure that you'd want in that underpass, is what I've been told at least.
Well, I mean, they had sketched it out with some bollards, you know, to separate
I get where you're
people
going,
from
yeah.
that. So, you know, something worth looking at, which, you know, is much more favorable than going through people's
I
backyards.
agreed. And again, the CHPE is not necessarily in favor of this. Somebody asked for this to be on the agenda tomorrow. And I had heard a little bit of a whisper about this principle at one point, and apparently it was real enough that it's going to be on the agenda for tomorrow's discussion. And so I'll keep you apprised of it, but it was definitely, I think, a wake-up call to folks on Kayleen that, you know, watch what you're signing off on if you don't want that necessarily, if you're going to give up your land in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Is that helpful?
Sure.
Oh, great, you're still there?
Okay.
By the way, 5 minutes are up. No, just kidding.
Couple questions on the sidewalks. What about sidewalks being installed where they do not connect to anything? Say the people on Middle Street, Hammond, Chesterwood Court, and a number of others in the village, there is no sidewalks. And there's nothing to connect to, but I put a sidewalk in, do I get reimbursed for that? Is that how that's gonna work? I mean, there's a number of places where on the street, the sidewalk ends at a crosswalk. And then they've got other houses, but none of them have sidewalks, and so one puts it in and they get reimbursed for that sidewalk when it doesn't, you know, it's a sidewalk to nowhere.
The way the code was attempted to be rewritten, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, the intent was to say that in neighborhoods that didn't have sidewalks, there wouldn't be requirements. There's no enforcement action in a case like Colonial Hills, for instance, or.
But are they gonna be named specifically? That's another thing that I was.
It was,
curious about.
that we handled
Because there's
it
so
in a
many
general
around this
way.
village.
We were handling it in a general way to say that essentially it was under the purview of the board / Jeff as superintendent of DPW, or the building inspector as an appeal. And if it's a planning board scenario where it was a new build or something along those lines, the planning board could give a waiver in that situation, was where we were landing on that type of thing. The answer to your question is, if somebody wants to install a sidewalk, then we can't tell them, no, you can't get a reimbursement. So realistically, yeah, they could.
So they could be the only one on the block, and
They could try to be the trendsetter. They could.
If we do, you know, look at this assessment model, I actually have gone through, because I'm actually walking the sidewalks for the ADA survey, and made a list of all the streets that have sidewalks and the ones that don't. And it's actually more that don't. than just Chesterwood, Forest Hills, and that there's a number of streets that
There's a lot of
have,
streets. I walk them too.
yeah.
Well,
But
So-
be
I ride
aware,
'em.
but be aware, for instance, the draft benefit assessment would still charge people in those neighborhoods $50. So, you know, is there an incentive to, if you're paying anyway to go put a sidewalk in or ask the village to put a sidewalk in or force their hand to do it some way? That's an interesting question for another day, I guess.
and to Sean's point, you know, if we're talking about public safety, are the people on Hannum and Middle Street not allowed to be safe? They don't have to have sidewalks? You know, I don't understand where the dividing line is there. I guess it's boggling to me. Of course, I'm older than people, but that's okay.
I would never call you feeble.
There's that bug you guys been chasing.
Yeah.
Romano Trail. I was down there last week. We have a Romano Trail. We have the new signs up. They look great, but they're still, and I'll use this phrase again, signs to nowhere. There's nothing at the trailhead that says, there's the Romano Trail, go follow it. And there's more to it, and there's more to it. During my trip, I met a few people that were down there with their dogs getting in the water, which was great. It was, you know, Labrador heaven down there. And then I turned the corner and there's a 15-20 foot rope hanging off a tree that was just about at the bottom, maybe that high. And I thought about my 8-year-old twin grandsons running through there and getting caught on that loop. So somehow I managed to get that rope out of the tree. I don't know what people were doing with it, but it just, to me, it was a super danger. I didn't want to see anybody get hurt. So if anybody asks the village clerk, hey, where's my rope? I got it. Also, there's a lot of potholes, trip hazards. We've done nothing with that trail. And there's big scoop out areas. I had a tough time getting the scooter through, but I made it. But somebody in a wheelchair or somebody walking on crutches, it's going to be road platform. Or those people that don't have disabilities, they can walk through and trip. So something to look at. I did also go up to the trail in Milton, the new trail up there.
Milton Mile.
Wonderful trail, absolutely wonderful trail. And all it is stoned. That's all it is. It's not paved. It's, you know, it's just clean, and yeah, we should look at that. It'd be nice to do something down there and not just concentrate on one park all the time. Where are we with the front pad for Union Fire?
Labella was out there evaluating it. I know that I didn't see myself, but people told me they were out there getting it together. The next step from there will be sending the specs to Carla to perform the bid packaging that's needed to be done, and then go out to bid and get the work done ASAP.
Think it's going to be this year?
This calendar year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just curious, because again, that's a teeth rattler.
100%. I was passing by today and thinking the same thing. You're right.
And any updates on the curfew rules? I asked about that about a month or so ago.
I don't have any updates.
No, okay. I was curious because we haven't heard anything about that, and it's been a year and a half or so. How old's your boy? He just graduated, didn't he?
He just graduated.
So he's like 18 now, so he's past that. And I remember the incident that he had. So it's been a while. Okay, I think that is. Yep, that's everything I had.
Thanks,
I
sir.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else in the house? I see some Zoom hands. I don't know how fresh they are at this point because I think they were up during our executive session impromptu.
The first one doesn't have a name, so we're just going to say, go ahead.
Samsung.
Samsung.
Samsung, if you're there, and I believe you unmuted, go ahead. And Samsung said bye.
Okay. All right. So, Michael Acquanucci.
Icolucci, yes.
That's what I said. Acquanucci.
Mike, go ahead. Yeah, I think we pronounced your name right eventually.
Okay.
I think. Hold on. There you are. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you. Mike Icolucci, 9 Russell Street. 2 things, if I may. First, just a quick comment about bus stops, bus shelters, bump outs, the CDTA. I'm not sure where we are, but I remain in favor of testing different possibilities that CDTA has expressed an interest in providing. So I hope that the board will pursue that. Second, on the sidewalk issue, I want to make clear I am not a village resident, so I do not have a direct monetary stake in this. But I do think, as many people say, that numbers are important in terms of understanding different alternatives that are available with respect to sidewalks. So just some quick numbers. The steering committee, I think Trustee Cormos referred to a figure of 16 miles of sidewalks. And at 5,280 feet per mile, that's about 85,000 linear feet. And Mayor Rossi, I think you referred to ultimately 110,000 linear feet. So just to make numbers easy for me, I'm going to round off and say, let's assume there's 100,000 linear feet involved. And Mayor Rossi, you indicated that the typical lifespan of a sidewalk is 30 years. So 100,000 linear feet divided by 30 years is 3,300 linear feet. And I believe the general idea is that the sidewalk should be 5 feet wide. So 3,300 feet in length times 5 feet in width gives us 16,500 square feet, as I understand it. And just doing a quick Google search, recognizing that costs can vary significantly, a range of anywhere from $6 to $12 per square foot is thrown out there as an approximate number. So if I just take an assumption of $10 per square foot at 16,500 square feet, that comes to $165,000. So I guess my point is, I think it's imperative that the board have good numbers to work with. I don't know, I think I heard Mayor Rossi refer to $800,000 a year to maintain or do these sidewalks. So I'm not sure where that comes from. And my numbers could be off. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an architectural or design expert. But when I look at the numbers as laid out by various members of the board, Trustee Cormos and Mayor Rossi, that's where I kind of end up. So I simply encourage you all, please get the numbers, understand what they are, and share the right numbers, appropriate numbers with the public. Thank you.
And Mike, just to be clear, we had done investigation during the previous version of looking at the code, and we were landing at $12 to $14 for personal approach, i.e. landowner doing it themselves. The problem is that by the village taking it over, prevailing wage then comes the issue. And so that's where we're going into the $18 to $21 a square foot possibility ultimately. And so that's why numbers up there. Furthermore, there are administrative expenses that I was referring to that go into that $800,000 number. It's probably somewhere in that $600,000 to $800,000 range ultimately is where I was going.
So Mayor, if I may respond quickly.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
even if we double my $10 number to 20, that's 330,000 a year, not 800,000.
Plus
So
administrative,
again,
it's plus administrative and legal and land purchase for, as Mary pointed out, the eminent domain possibilities, et cetera. And so basically where I landed was somewhere in the $6 to $8 million over 10-year range. And that's what you have to figure out is kind of a 10-year approach on something like this.
So, and again, the board will need to examine the whole issue of eminent domain and how much that would likely occur and the expense of it. But again, to me, it's important that all of you focus on some real numbers. And if 800,000 is the real number, then that's what should be discussed. If it's not the real number, then the appropriate number should be discussed. Thank you.
And on the flip side, 200,000 isn't the correct number, that too, and flip. So it works in both directions like that. And I agree wholeheartedly with you on that.
Right. And the plan would adjust based on those costs. So, but in terms of where we are with the bus shelters, Frank and I are going to meet with Ross of the CDTA. He's been on vacation, and we have some alternative sites that we'd like to discuss with him. And he's going to send us his data. I thought he would already, but I think he's going to as soon as he gets back on ridership and stop times and things like that. So we're sort of waiting for him to get back to town.
Yeah, and I actually spoke with Dave Avaniris earlier today, who's actually watching us tonight, and I told him that no action was going to be taken, but it's just a general discussion. Ross owes us that data. We'll get that, hopefully get that site visit. But from what he indicated, he's also going to be looking to work on in the office, basically the alternative ideas. Possibly, for instance, the village parking lot next to El Turco and Reshop. Thank you. Couldn't I think of say my life right now? So there's an idea because we can actually utilizing the parking lot, use a back-ended bus shelter approach without the bump out, for instance. And I think Jared had written his letter to the other about the possibility of claiming one parking space compared to the 4 or 5 that would have been up on Front Street, but it's true. And I know Ben had talked to Reshop with the idea that, hey, would you be okay with it? And generally they were amenable to the idea, which may put you basically on the fringe of the business district, or what we look as the business district, and getting possibly that bus out of the lane of traffic in that situation. So it could be a very successful scenario, and we appreciate CDTA for taking a good look at that. Okay, I think Christine's up next. Yeah. Go ahead, Christine.
Christine Fitzpatrick, 31 Chapman Street, Ballston Spa. Can you hear me?
Absolutely can. Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to just comment a couple of things on the sidewalk law, the sidewalk proposal. I clearly remember the public comment period and what the genesis of this alternative that Ben has put forward and that needs to be examined further, was that the whole genesis was that people were not did not want to pay large amounts of money. It became very clear to me, and I hope to people in the audience, that people did not want to pay a large amount of money for installation of these, excuse me, I'm sorry. Large amounts of money to install the sidewalks. And that's where this whole question of setting up an assessment or a tax or whatever you came out of that public hearing. So I think this is being responsive to certainly what I heard. And this is not the first time that this has been come up with and come up as a discussion of an individual taking responsibility or the community as a whole taking responsibility. It's come up before. It came up again in 2019. And, it was sort of put off to, okay, well, we're going to have, we're going to have the, individual do this. And then it came up in the last public hearing when the sidewalk law 2, excuse me, was proposed. And it became very clearly that people didn't want that. So one of the things I'm seeing is that either way, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So either way, this problem has to be solved. And for my money, what I saw, for my nickel, what I saw was that people were leaning towards not paying it on an individual basis and having the village take it over. That said, I guess you have to look further at what what has been proposed. And I agree with Mike Iacolucci, as I so often do, that you have to have real numbers. You have to, and we all have to see them. And please, they have to be written down. When you're sitting here and throwing out these numbers, one number after another, it becomes a fog, and it becomes a distraction, and it's almost like it's a game to keep talking about the numbers and throwing these numbers out. Put it down in writing and look at a written proposal. In terms of item I, which is the, I guess, the alternative to the alternative proposal about installing in sidewalks and getting it $3,500 for reimbursement. I would not approve that even temporarily. It's very clear to me that if you approve that temporarily, that you're never going to get anything else done. It's like that will become the law and there'll be no political will to do anything further. So I would suggest that you do not adopt that on any kind of temporary basis. It'll become once again a stall. And the other thing is, one of the things that I think is particularly dangerous in this proposal is that it talks for an annual escalator based on the consumer price index. That is just financially, that is just not a good idea. Everybody who's doing annual adjustments based on the consumer price index, first of all, that always has to be refined, what you mean on what price part of the consumer price index, but everybody who's doing that wants to get out of it. So I wouldn't start out with putting that in if you were ever going to consider it. My last comment is the same as Donna Dardaris about the Village of Ballston Spa Advisory Committee Charter, Revenue Advisory Committee. I understand that I had the same, what was the third proposal, but you're going to talk about that. The other thing that I would suggest here, though, is that you define what is a quorum. You state that you can't, I mean, we know what a majority is, but this does not say, it says you can't meet unless there's a quorum, but you don't define in the charter what the quorum is. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
I think Kristen is next.
Hello, Kristen Icolucci, 24 Chapman Street. I would just like to see more discussion and consideration of this alternative solution to our current sidewalk code and law. I think it's nice for those that can't afford it to get more money back, but it doesn't solve the issue of our sidewalks. We all rely on the sidewalks to walk around the village. So I think that it makes sense that we should all be investing in the quality of repairs of our sidewalks. I don't think that this increase in the reimbursement, or I guess my question is, how does the increase in the reimbursement help our neighbors who are on fixed incomes, who will never be able to afford to fix or replace or add their sidewalks, unless we're talking about the reimbursement being at 100%, which is not feasible. So my neighbor recently replaced her sidewalk. She said it cost her about $7,000. So that's still, $3,500 out of pocket for the property owner to even put in the sidewalk. Even if you up the increase to another $3,500, they're still out of pocket $3,500. $3,500 is a lot of money for a senior, a lot of money for a family starting out, a lot of money for a lot of people. So I don't think that we're going to see our sidewalks be magically fixed just by increasing the reimbursement amount for those that can already afford it. So I do think it could be feasible if there's an assessment or a method to, help us be able to repair and fix all of our sidewalks. We all use our sidewalks. We all should be investing in our sidewalks. I would like to see more discussion on an alternate solution than just increasing reimbursement. Thank you.
Caitlin.
Apologies for raising my hand under false pretenses. This is Conan from 186 South Street, not Caitlin. I just wanted to point out that we maintain roads collectively because we recognize that they're important for us all. We want roads to be safe and passable for everyone. We don't assume that roads are only for the person who lives in front of that road.
You can't hear.
Comrade, we can't hear you, but we can't hear you. Apologies. Comrade, you're breaking up on us on this end, and you can't even make it out. Can you make it out? No. Not sure if it's an internet connection.
Okay, can you hear me now or
That
not?
is so much better.
Okay.
Start from
Apologies for
scratch,
that.
start from scratch.
Starting over, sorry. Kamran Parwana, 86 South Street. I just wanted to point out that we maintain roads collectively as a village as a village and all of the other entities that are responsible, because we recognize that they're important for all of us. We want roads to be safe and passable for everyone, and we don't assume that roads are only for the person who lives in the house that's in front of that road. I'll also point out that all of us are sometimes pedestrians. So sidewalks then are not only for the people who live in front of that sidewalk and should not only be the responsibility for the person in front of that sidewalk, because they're not the only people who use them. We should be working to ensure that sidewalks are safe and passable for every person. And we should look carefully at every alternative to ensure that. And sorry for the issues. That's it. Thanks.
Although a couple people have made this argument, I just want to remind everybody, we get a $300,000 a year CHIPS funding, and it's the law. We're required by law to maintain our own roads. Although Route 50, for instance, is the state's road, or the county's road is somewhere else. You get the point. It's not apples and apples, because it's an actual state mandate that the village pave its own roads. It is not such a thing for the sidewalks, and there's no CHIPS funding for sidewalks to sort of compensate for that fact.
Actually, you can use some of CHIPS for sidewalks and.
Only for the ADA aspects of it, though.
Well, those are aspects.
not
Also,
installation.
we are putting in another $100,000 into our roads.
Because we're required to.
No. Additional money, not CHIPS money. A few years ago, we decided we were getting 100,000 from CHIPS. And under Mayor Woolbright's administration, we decided to double that by putting in 100,000 of our own money to match that, to increase the schedule of repairs for our roads. So we are putting our own funds into streets. My street's breaking up, but it's a few years before it's gonna get fixed, but,
Actually,
it's not
we-
all
we-
CHIPS money.
We actually may do that road this year. I'm actually making an appeal to Jeff, because I do think that High Boulevard is well due time. I think it's going to avoid it because you and people live on it. And I think that's not an appropriate reason not to do it. It needs to be done in its entirety. And we're taking a good look at it, and we'll hopefully know soon if it will be redone.
Yeah, they do need to fill some holes.
Yeah. Well, it's been done piecemeal as part of the problem over time, is what I discovered in asking the questions. So I think it's time to take a look at it. And I also have been trying to make sure that we're doing roads in different pieces of the community so that people don't feel like they're getting the shaft any given year or two. I think there's enough ways to do it on needs-based measures and still make sure all parts of the community feel like they're being included in it.
If it is in the plans to repave High, then we could do the striping and improve.
Well,
improve
one of
that
the things I
afterwards.
said to him was, if we're going to do anything, be it road humps, striping, or whatever it may be, Lord knows, let's first do the paving so that we're not doing something, then
No.
removing something, then doing something again. So it plays into the calculus too.
Kamran's point is, we're doing it as a community. We're not requiring individuals to repair their own piece of street.
Because we're required to do it. That's the
And
thing.
because it's the only feasible way to do it.
We are required to do it.
So we wouldn't do that? Are you saying that
You
if
can't-
it wasn't a state
No,
law
no,
that we
no,
all
Liz.
pitch in, you're
Liz.
saying we.
Liz, there's no ability in state law to say, here, landowner, take responsibility for the street and the liability that goes with it. That's just, it's imposed on us. We have to do it. And so,
It's not saying it's a bad thing,
yeah, it's
No,
just, it's a
it's-
reality.
It's the
Yeah.
only way to do it.
Correct, because it's law. So anyway, anybody else in the house? Hearing none, board response. I shortened the board response because I realized in the rules procedures that I think that's how it's written anyway, so board response it is.
I'd just like to comment to Gina's comment about them putting in the sidewalk. That was a new construction. And under the proposed laws, both of them, it has new construction is required to pay for and put in a sidewalk. In other words, they don't get the benefit of either the reimbursement or in either case. So that, no, it's part of the new law,
New law.
right?
It hasn't
But
applied
it
yet.
is also listening to the planning board, looking at the proposals, something they can demand.
They didn't.
Actually, no. Actually, the first time we've ever added a CO requirement for sidewalks was actually the new code. That was the first time after discovering that it was an omission.
But out of site plan review, their site plan review, they can require a sidewalk.
They didn't.
No, they can.
They didn't.
Right, it was a question of obligation, though, Liz, is what we're going at here when we're having that part of the discussion. Who else wants to go? I don't name who goes first here.
Just mine.
Oh, sorry.
You want to go first?
Mine's quick. Just my point. Thank you to Mary and the rest of the team for still, pitching and rolling up your sleeves for Family Fun Day. I can help with some design stuff. I do design, so Donna's writing my name down. So
It's
so
fun dates, fun dates.
Her phone number is.
so whatever graphics things you guys need, let me know.
Perfect.
Talked
thank
about
you.
that. Perfect.
Go ahead, Sean.
I know during the public comment period, there was mention about the proposed benefit assessment fee, and it was referred to as a tax. That's actually an inaccurate description. We don't call water assessment fee a water tax, and we don't call a sewer assessment fee a sewer tax. And neither one of those are subject to a permissive referendum. So it's basically the exact same thing as those two. It's a fee associated with an infrastructure improvement and maintenance.
I'll wait for Carla to tell me.
Anything?
No, I'm good. I had enough response already.
And because it's thundering, I'm not gonna say diddly squat. Let's move. Make a motion that the Ballston Spot Lions Club be granted permission to park cars during the Saratoga County Fair, July 18, 23, the village right of way along the fence line on Fairground Avenue. I'm gonna do this quick because I don't know how long we're gonna have power if this is happening. So trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Cormos, discussion, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Got a motion that the BSBPA be granted permission to conduct the 21st annual The Way We Work Car Show on October 8, 2023, the rain date on October 15, 2023, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Set up beginning at 6 a.m. See attached letter for street closings and other details. Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Taking a motion that Eagle Mountain League Fire Company number 1 be granted permission to hold their annual tag day on July 22nd, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Taking a motion that the resignation of Timothy Hayjack as a village full-time police officer be accepted effective July 15, 2023. Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're skipping E because I haven't given Dave Bush the opportunity to have the conversation to finish up, tie up that loose end. So we're skipping E here by request earlier today. F, motion, can I have one approving the use of the old Iron Spring Park for plein air art class to be held on September 1st, 2023, the rain date of September 2nd, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. An event request form was filed by Committee on the Arts and a certificate of insurance was submitted by the artist.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin, trustee Fandesa, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to, I'm gonna skip G. I just want to get this stuff that's gonna be the easy ones out for a second here. But let's go to H. Can I get a motion to amend the committee policy to add the text 3? Should a board member refuse to select one or more committee members, or if the board member's selection is delayed by more than 3 weeks from creation of the committee, then the selection will go in order of seniority to the other board members willing to pick members.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin, trustee Cormos, discussion.
What is this for? Why?
I'm confused by this.
What triggered this?
It's because of the things that happen that sometimes shouldn't happen. And just dotting our i's, crossing our t's for different contingencies. And so like I nominated someone who was having trouble getting approval from their work to join the revenue committee. And so I was grateful that there was some accommodation, we waited a couple weeks. But at some point, the committee has to be formed and start, and so there should be a timeline on that. So that's all that is.
Sorry, I should do another thing. I appreciate that. However, I don't think it was needed. It got sorted out. You figured out they couldn't do it, and then you found someone else. I think it's probably better so that we are trying to get a balance on that, on each of our committees and any sort of board that we have, to give you that time. I was happy to give you that time. I didn't work. So personally, I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts, though. I think it's helpful to have some guidelines there rather than have it undefined.
It appears to me all it is that it incentivizes the person to make, decision in a timely manner. I don't see any real negative from it.
The only problem is that it doesn't follow the other mandates of the order of events, or the order of pick, because in the committee policy, it gives mayor first choice on seniority. Then you're just giving the back to seniority instead of mayor first and seniority. So it does not follow the original approach. And I'm not saying I want it for the power of control. I'm just saying it is actually different from how we started in this whole thing.
Well, I'm okay with how it is.
Are you going to motion to table? Trustee Condensa. I'll second it. I just think maybe we need to rethink this and see where we go with it.
I'd like to just vote on it and just move on.
Okay, so, motion to table has been offered, so I'll call the question to that. Roll call.
Wow, I'm awake now. Trustee Baskin,
No,
trustee Raymond,
No.
trustee Von Denza,
Yes.
trustee Cormos. No. Mayor Rossi.
Yes, that fails to table. So at this point, not quite ready to call the question. I mean, again, why would you go one way with this informing the board or committee and then switch gears when you're trying to do this next step of it?
I just think this is fine the way it is.
Let me try that again. Why would you go inform it one way and then if you're going to basically try to go back up the ladder to restart it, you would go to a different rung of the ladder at that point?
Well, in the future, if we want to, we can consider that. But I'm okay this way. I would have been okay saying, I think there was in deference to the mayor position that we put it in the other way. And I would have been all right saying going for seniority the other way too. So I don't see the need to table this.
Well, table's off the table, no pun intended. It's a question of whether we're approving or not now. Anybody else? Roll call.
Trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Von Denza,
No.
trustee Cormos.
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
No. Motion carries 3-2. Let's see, we're keeping G and K together because they should have been in the first place. Let's go to J, let's go by for a second. So the things that will be left here are going to be G, I, and K, just so for those keeping track at home. Getting a motion to approve the attached revised rules and procedures. Trustee Cormos.
Second.
Trustee Raymond, discussion. So for those that are not aware in the audience, basically you're going to be scrutinized under rules of being proper and respectful, and you could have your opportunity to speak taken away if it's found to be threatening or in violation of the rules, etc. After a couple of 2 or 3 strikes. I can't remember which it is. Which I don't think is actually constitutionally allowed.
Not in Massachusetts. Not Massachusetts.
Commonwealth?
No, there's a
What, you want this?
there's a, I think it's Massachusetts or Washington, there's a case that says you gotta be very careful about it because it could be a First Amendment issue, but that's not in New York.
We had this reviewed by Carla and there are a number of changes based on her advice.
They went to you for advice? Afterwards.
And actually, the whole concept of having rules of procedure was originally her idea.
Yeah, because you're required under the law to have rules of procedure. But that was like a year and a half ago.
Oh, well, I'm glad we found out about that, because
Yep, that keeps on giving, let me tell you.
I'm here for you.
We'll go voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm abstaining.
no.
In and out. It's 3-1-1 on the totals. Approved. Okay, let's go back to I for a second. Motion that a public hearing be set during the July 24th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Trustees at 7:01 PM to consider proposed local law number 4 of 2023 to repeal section 174-2 of the Village of Ballston Code containing a sidewalk reimbursement to replace section 174-2 with the following language: whenever sidewalks are constructed, repaired, or replaced on the streets of said village, with the consent of the village clerk, of approved material and of the width and cost provided by law, the owner or occupant of the premises adjoining such walk, who shall have constructed, repaired, or replaced the same, will be paid with approval of the Board of Trustees 50% of the cost of such sidewalk and or curb construction, repair, or replacement up to $3,500 per property, which shall be adjusted annually on June 1st based on the prior calendar year's consumer price index change to account for inflation. Receipts and bills of items of the cost thereof must accompany all claims for such payment. Trustee Pandanza, I'll second.
Can I make a motion to table this?
I'll second.
Take this discussion.
Discussion on the last table, so we do it this one.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're telling folks right now that you're gonna have to wait to replace a sidewalk if you want to for a reasonable rate. So you're basically disincentivizing folks from going out and actually doing what the current law suggests. So I could actually go out and mandate and enforce the law tomorrow and say, you're gonna get only that $250.
Carla
Yes.
mentioned in her notes sent to us just before the meeting, that this was not reviewed by her. That's why, it's one reason for that tabling, and we're in the middle of discussions of a sidewalk law, and I think this is premature.
What would your objections be, Madam Council?
No, I'm in the middle of this. I didn't read Ben's, I didn't read yours. It is what it is, however you guys want to do it.
It's
I
fine.
also, I think, I have concerns with putting this in the code, because we've agreed to not have these things in the code. I agree with what Christine said about the consumer price index and requiring that in the code. So, and then in addition, with this other conversation happening, I think this is premature. So those are my reasons.
Yeah, I just
Yes,
think I'm not gonna spend $3,500. It's the possibility I can get my sidewalk done in a year or two for $100 a year. I don't know anybody can do that. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Wait, what doesn't make sense?
Why would you spend $3,500 on a sidewalk now when there's the potential that if other legislation comes out, I can get my sidewalk done and just pay $100
Because
a
a new
year?
construction may be required to, you just said by the planning board.
If you're gonna compel people,
If it's new construction,
I could go out and compel people to go and replace their sidewalk right now. Technically, we've generally not done the enforcement because of the uneven enforcement mechanisms that right now that exist, but I could technically go out and say, go do it.
but you're not gonna, nobody has in decades.
Well, at this pace, if you're going to let these sidewalks just sit here for another 6 months to a year, because you won't get your benefit assessment until June 1st, well, by July 1st of 2024. So these sidewalks are going to sit here not getting improved in the meantime. Are you okay with that?
oh, that's not necessarily true. We could simply take the existing 15,000 and 50,000 and transfer another 150,000 out of the fund balance. There's the 200 that we're assuming we're going to develop with the rates and start this year.
So we're gonna bleed fund balance now.
So
Well, where did the sidewalk money that we budgeted come from?
Taxes.
From the- yeah. Oh, I think we're splitting hairs here.
So a few thoughts. You know, as we try to figure out what we're going to exactly do for a longer term plan, Sean will use terms that phrase you always say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And right now, people are waiting to hear what we're doing with the reimbursement. If there is concern about CPI, we could say, what was it, Carla, that it'd be adjusted according to board resolution.
Yeah, when this first started, the idea was to just take the 250 out and say the reimbursement fee will be made by the board, subject to resolution from time to time. And then there would be a fee schedule. That was what the whole thing started with the sidewalk law. So, I mean, that's, you know, if you don't want to change, you know, this change to have the 50% in, then you say it's subject to resolution and the board sets a fee schedule, but then the board was going to set the fee schedule and there was no fee schedule.
So my concern is that, like, I get it. You guys want to figure out some sort of long-term plan. But right now, we've constantly asked our residents to hold, wait. We're not providing them any answer. Costs have gone up, but people still have to repair the sidewalks. There's sidewalks that are in dire need of repair, and there are people that have been already looking into the costs and talking to contractors, people pouring cement, and there's just this hold pattern, and I don't think that's necessarily good for this community. So I would hope our board can figure out a way to provide some sort of positive answer while we're still in season to pour cement, at a more affordable rate rather than in the cold. Whatever the answer is, I think waiting until we figure out what we're doing for an overall long-term plan is just not helpful at this point. And I cannot express to you how disappointed I was when we did have some sort of plan to figure out at least this one part of it, and it has been yanked out from rug's been yanked out from everyone's feet as far as this community is concerned. So I asked our board to consider this, find it in your hearts. So if we have to talk about the resolution part of it, Frank, I don't know, that could be a potential solution if it.
Well, the 50% thing, I keep being told that Corinth, and I followed the village of Corinth for 50%. The issue is that we seem to want to put a limitation on what 50% meant so that no one property got, let's say, an inordinate share because they had 500 linear feet of sidewalk or something like that. And so I used 100 feet times 5 feet width is 500 square feet times what we assumed the number was about $14 a square foot on the upper end of it, just to be safe. So $7,000 for that sidewalk with 100 feet, linear feet, divided by 2, obviously, for $3,500 reimbursement. So I was trying to use what you've given me as guidance in the past to sort of make sure we weren't overpaying, but we were using Corinth and we were using the 50% approach, which is the maximum by state law in a reimbursement approach. So I was listening, and that's why
came with those numbers. Okay.
And so the inflation adjuster is the idea that the materials are going to increase and labor is going to increase by a price every year. Let's say nothing does get done, and this is sitting in our code to make sure that we don't end up in the same boat again where it never goes up, and so we end up in 10 years with still $3,500, and we're back in the hole. You're well under what the market rate would have been scenario. It was there as protection. So if you want to reword that to something along the lines of which may be adjusted annually by resolution of the board for that part of it, I'm happy to do that. But again, this was drawn out of prolonged year-long plus discussions and trying to figure out a way, because as you remember, a few meetings ago, I asked the audience, if we just pulled out this idea of upping reimbursement and not doing all the other things that were a little concerning to people, would you be okay with that idea? And all the two people held up their hands. I think Marilyn and Christine were the only two that didn't in the audience that night. So the thought is, if somebody's willing to go get their sidewalk done, they deserve a reimbursement that is going to be more representative of today's market and even what you may do in the future with the law, which would be 100% of the coverage of it to a certain degree.
I have a suggestion. Why don't we table this and then reach out to all the folks who have applications currently in that are dated as of today backwards, that want to do sidewalks and see what that represents.
They wouldn't, they won't apply you unless you're going to do it. That's
Well,
the issue.
no, you can always
get an
apply.
appointment.
You don't necessarily have to start construction. You still have to get an application in. So, I mean, I'd say table it to find out how many people are actually want to do a sidewalk, and tell them that the potential would be that maybe in a year or two, they could have the sidewalk done without putting out $3,500. And they would put out anywhere from, $100 or $200 a year and have the sidewalk done. I think that data is vital before we make any decision on that.
Terry, would you like to give some information on that?
No such application exists. They come in, they ask for a sidewalk permit, they're granted the sidewalk permit.
What permits are we talking, he's talking about? How many people have?
But they wouldn't put in an application. There's no such thing as an application in lieu of permit. There's a permit you go in for and it's granted automatically, is what she's saying.
Does the permit have an expiration
Yeah,
date?
it's good for a year.
So
it's good
Ben,
for a year.
if we make that adjustment, but taking out CPI and saying by reso board, because you mentioned that as one of your concerns, could you be amenable to this? I'd really like to get things unstuck, like we're stuck
Yeah,
and it's hurting people.
I mean, it's not ready to be voted on. Carla hasn't read it or reviewed it, and it has issues with the language. So even for that reason, but also I have real concerns about putting the fee schedule in the law. I don't think it belongs in the law. We've learned a lesson about that. That's why we have
If
such.
this is a
complicated-
change to code, that requires a public hearing.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, no, this is too premature. And somewhere along the line, I remember, it might have been Frank who said, we should, do the whole law, not change.
No, I
little
gotta
bits
be
of it.
honest, that was me and I'm really regretting.
Well, anyways, the thing is, we've been discussing sidewalks since at least 2019. When we, that's, I can show you the email. So, for us to take a few more months to get this right, get this the way the majority of folks in this village want to do this, I think is worth it.
Liz,
I'm not saying that
it was a
can't.
few.
And we
Still
can
discuss
ignore, the pressure that comes before an election.
May I for 1 second?
Oh,
throw that?
sorry. Yes, and I'd like to respond to that.
It's been a few more months for 48 months, give or take, if that's the case. It's been a few more months and a few more months and a few more months, and we're still looking at 250 a square foot. Remember, again, the bicycle and pedestrian master plan recommended an increase of the reimbursement rate.
Yeah, and they're looking at what we are doing, and I'm very interested to see if we are going to.
I'm going by the writing of this. If you want to redo the pedestrian bicycle master plan, go ahead and do that. But if you think it needs to be brought up to date, but again,
They didn't consider this alternative.
to further incentivize property maintenance or repair, the village could increase the reimbursement amount or enforce the sidewalk maintenance policy, begin levying fees for substandard sidewalks.
That is a suggestion. It is one option. We have now discovered, which I didn't think was possible, in doing an assessment. And we'd
And I
like to
think-
explore it.
I would suggest we table this until we contact CDTC and offer this information. They say, would this also be viable in an equal recommendation?
What?
Well,
No, I'm sorry. I didn't
they
understand what you
went
meant by
on
that.
what we had in our existing law. They were not aware that we were potentially going to change the law. I'd say bring it to them and say, would this also be a recommendation, knowing now?
You can do that. We're saying in the meantime, Sean, make the change for now.
I-
What are you scared about? I don't get it. What are you scared about?
Well, I'm not scared about anything. I just know this is premature, and if we change the law, there's gonna be people who put out thousands who are gonna be really ticked off if it goes in and say, oh, right now, I could have waited and just paid an annual fee and got my sidewalk done, but I outlaid thousands. And let's not forget, everybody, it's a reimbursement. So they gotta put $7,000 out before they get 3,500 back. A lot of that's a killer for a lot of folks. So I just think this is gonna go nowhere, and I don't think anybody's gonna use it. And putting it in code now, to change it, we have to do another public hearing.
You're gonna have to do one anyway.
So I think we're all stuck in our positions at this point.
I'd like to
It
first
should be, yes.
address, though, the comment about the election. Stop bringing it up. Like, my God, the only people obsessed with the election are the ones bringing it up. I'm genuinely concerned. Like, people are reading, and I'm sorry that you're fixated on the election rather than helping in this case. Again, doesn't mean that we don't discuss continually having a more comprehensive approach, but my God, we've been talking about this and we're stuck and people are relying on us, and I know you're going for the mic. So it's kind of silly, and I'm disappointed. And I think there's going to be a lot of people disappointed, because here's the thing, even if we do get a plan, and even if you get your tax, where are people in that line of getting their sidewalk repaired?
Bernadette.
I'm not gonna call it a tax. In practicality, it's a
called an
tax.
assessment fee.
Listen, I could
Refer
use,
to it by its proper name.
oh gosh, Liz, thank you for the lecture. Hold on, guys.
Let's just move on.
But to the point,
Let's move to. a
please
vote.
don't, I'm not finished, Liz. I let you talk very, so please. The sure, you guys can use whatever word you want, but the reality, the way people will feel about this, that's a tax. So I'm going to continue to call it a tax, and you could disagree with me, but stop chiding me for that, because that's how people are going to feel about it. So thank you.
Okay, so motion to table the existing motion. Carla. Roll call vote on tabling this.
Trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Von Denza,
No.
trustee Cormos,
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes, now can I get a motion that a public hearing be set for the July 24th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Trustees at 7:01 PM? Consider proposed local law number 4 of 2023 to repeal section 174-2 of the Village Hall Spot Code pertaining to sidewalk reimbursement, and replace section 174-2 with the following language. The quote that is on the paper, I will not go through that. No, actually, because there was a misprint in it, now I'm actually setting it for that date instead of on that date.
What? Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Stop
no,
wasting our time.
Okay, well, can I get that motion? I second it, and also can I get a revision of that?
Motion to table.
I'm sorry, you can't, because you're not gonna be recognized until I'm done talking for a second here. Can I get a revision on that to state, with the approval of the Board of Trustees, 50% of the cost of such sidewalking and or curb and structure repair or replacement up to $3,500 per property, which may be adjusted annually by resolution of the board. Period. Would you accept that?
Yes.
And I will as well.
Motion to table.
Second.
Since this is a new motion in the first place, public hearing.
Jesus.
Yep, public comment comes for 90 seconds.
No, it's an amended motion.
Yeah, it's an amendment. It's not a new motion. That's right. It is not a new motion. Thank you,
Amended
Sean.
motion.
Right, which
No.
is not a new motion.
Are you the
not.
presiding officer?
Frank,
We got
stop
rules and
playing.
procedures.
What a,
How about the two of you follow your own damn rules of procedure?
We are.
Amended motion
You're
is not a new
screaming.
we're
motion.
trying to.
You're
We're trying,
screaming.
we insist that the rules and procedures be followed.
They are. It is,
Come on,
this is
Frank.
a surreptitious
political-
motion at this point.
Dirty political tricks.
It's not very
Why are
political
you
trick.
doing this?
Okay, so
You will have
again.
no other
again,
outcome.
Is it not a good idea to hear from the public?
Unbelievable.
It can't hurt to hear from them.
Unbelievable.
So-
It doesn't follow the rules of procedure.
You guys are so concerned about
Yeah,
that.
there was public comment on this On this motion, anyone could have commented at the time there was public comment.
It is a new
It's not
motion.
It is not a new motion. Carla?
You guys could have had the public comment by the time it took you to fight about it.
We like following the rules.
Because if you don't follow the rules, that's questionable
Okay, so
ethics.
I'm gonna lawyer it then. The motion that was made originally that you tabled specifically stated that a public hearing be set during the 7/24/2023 meeting. That was the motion that was tabled. That means that the motion that was tabled was that at the 7/24 meeting, that's when the public hearing was going to be set, not for that meeting, not to be on that meeting. And I'm not choosing sides here.
No, you are.
I am not choosing sides.
Oh.
I am reading and specifically identifying the terms that a public hearing be set during the 7/24/2023 meeting. Words matter. The public hearing be set during the meeting, not the public hearing be set on the meeting.
And Frank called it a typo. He called it a typo and we all read it as on for the 24th. We all read it that way, including Frank, who wrote it intending that. He called it a typo, is a typo.
And what
That's-
do you
it's not
agree
a new
with
motion.
hearing from
I'm
the
sorry.
public?
I'm sorry, so my legal opinion is that it is a new motion. And I apologize that you don't agree with my legal opinion, but that's what it is.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
I think the audience like to speak.
All right.
Good with you.
Thanks.
It's not a given anyone's going to speak there, Ben.
Thanks for showing us your opinion, Carl.
Oh my God, follow your rules of procedure, Ben.
So, okay, public. Ben, I know you're upset and I know you disagree with us, but
This is playing. games.
Liz, please let me stop, but just stop. Everybody lay off Carla. Like everybody's just being really tough on her. Everybody has a lot of things they want her to work on. She is literally, she has to work around what things say. And instead of being mad at her, sure, continue to be mad at me and Frank. That's fine. But please just give it a rest with her. And again, Ben, I'm bummed because like earlier we had an incident and you apologized. And then instead of just, I get you're upset, but that was the wrong thing to say.
This is ridiculous.
Okay.
All right, let's go to public comment. Forget the rules. Who cares? It's Frank's show. Do your political game, political circus.
Oh my God, he can't stop.
It's just not.
It's all recorded.
Thank God. Yeah, I'm gonna make a public comment. Just because I can. Gina Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane. I don't see any harm in setting a public hearing and listening to your constituents to see how they feel about things. What's wrong with that? And please, for God's sake, you just passed rules of procedure. Do they not apply to the board? Is courtesy not in there? Is not attacking not in there? You pass a rule that affects us, but you don't have to abide by it? Don't expect us to.
Anybody else? Are those fresh hands? I can't even see. Oh, Jason, sorry. Go ahead.
This is Road 99 Wellman Street. Trustee, mayor, trustee, clerk, attorney. Attorney is the title. Attorney means she has the knowledge, the legal knowledge. You guys are constantly questioning her. Are you an attorney? Are you an attorney? Are you an attorney? Are you an attorney? No. Trust your attorney.
Anybody else in the room? I think we have one hand left up there. Kristen?
Jared Icolucci, 24 Chapman Street. This feels very semantic and a bit absurd at this hour in a meeting to reintroduce a motion, changing a preposition in the motion and framing it as a brand new thing. We heard the will of the board to play this game just to push another vote to score some points is just a little absurd. Thank you.
Actually, the reason you do it, Jared, is because the tabled motion was an incorrect motion in the first place. So to bring it back from the table would have been still the incorrect motion later on. That's why you have to do it. And I wasn't even afforded the opportunity to correct the language before, because the motion of table came in before I had the opportunity to, which general courtesy says you allow discussion before you have motion to table to begin unless there's clear need to table it. That's why it was needed to be done, for those wondering. Yes, Ray, sorry.
Takes me a while to get up.
It's okay.
You know, this whole insulting each other is really, I won't say the word bullshit because I don't want to be censored here, but it is. Ben, you told me that the things that I bring up are absurd. Your lawyer speaks, oh, it's a political thing. Liz, oh, it's only about the election. It is. It's about the election, Liz. And like I said before, thank you for getting everybody in this village together because everybody wants you out. And it's because of this stuff that you pull. You got a motion here, do the motion. Ben, I tell you, I would watch out for her husband because the way you've insulted her tonight, if she were my wife, you'd have to watch where you're back. I'm telling you. You just don't get it. You don't get it. And I'm glad you're an engineer, Sean.
Anybody else? Okay.
Oh. I have no idea how I'm going to type up these minutes.
Call me.
He's on 16 Middlebrook, just so you know. Well, okay, so we've had our public comment, and you can do what you may, or I can call the questions, one or the other.
All right, call the question.
Okay. Roll call vote on the motion for the public hearing to occur on 7/24.
Trustee Baskin?
No.
Trustee Raymond?
No.
Trustee Van Denza?
Yes.
Trustee Cormos? Mayor Rossi?
So the one thing you forget is that this, as somebody pointed out, was to hear the public's voice on this matter. To hear the people that deserve the reimbursement if they're gonna put their sidewalk in, or that may be mandated by a planning board to put their sidewalk in, as you pointed out earlier. And so the people that are gonna be more ticked off at the end of the day, Sean, are the ones that are getting paid back $2.50 a square foot instead of the $7 a square foot they should be getting. Shame on you. You're hoarding the people's money. There's 3% of the tax rate, basically, that you just basically hoarded away for your own political purposes. That's, if we're gonna be using the word, there it is. I vote yes, it fails, it's 2-3.
I say it again.
You
I
voting
think
yes or
this-
no, Frank?
He just voted.
Yeah.
You said
This-
yes, but then it's 4-1.
It wasn't the table, man.
It was the motion
I called
itself,
the
to
question on
hold
the
the,
motion. There was no motion to table that was
right,
acknowledged
right.
because we were in a public comment
But
scenario.
did you vote?
I
I'm sorry.
voted yes.
I'm reversed. You're right.
Yeah.
okay. This motion to schedule a public hearing is premature. That's why I opposed it.
It is never premature to hear your voters and your residents and your taxpayers speak. That's the notion in my life here.
Only if there's a second option that hasn't been fully fleshed out and that the public should hear both of those options and then they can make an intelligent, informed decision.
At what point did we say it was one or the other? Nobody did. It was in the interim one. Then if you want to go to the other, go to the other. That was the idea. Okay, can I have a motion to approve trustee Cormos as liaison to the Revenue Advisory Committee?
If we, yeah, I'll make the motion. Sure.
Trustee Baskin?
Second.
Trustee Raymond. Okay, quick email. I realized that for a meeting that was not sent to all of you, so I apologize. Hold on. From Alex Unicello, who was the chair of the Revenue Advisory Committee. It looks like I am too late as the agenda is out, but wanted to follow up on the question of liaison. So I did ask the RAC what their view was, if they wanted a liaison and if they wanted Liz to be liaison, two separate questions. We held a vote at the meeting today, which is Saturday, on the subject, and we've decided we do not need one at this time. Various members of the committee will try to be in attendance for all village trustee meetings and would be glad to answer any questions directly. We can certainly reevaluate later if the need arises. Alex.
When was that sent?
Saturday at 12:27 p.m.
Have since informed Alex that part of the committee policy is that we have liaisons and that we have liaisons.
No, it's not.
for Committees.
No, there was a note earlier that was in there, if Carla wants to read it, but that was corrected since. Corrected in terms of the comments to your committee policy. We're going to go up probably next is that. You want to?
All it says, because I looked at that to see if it was a requirement, and the policy specifically says village board liaisons to committees will be chosen by a majority vote of the village board. So it just talks about how they're chosen. It doesn't say that there has to be a liaison for each
The
committee.
implication is that there will be a choice. So
That's
it's
not
not
what's
going to be,
written.
again, it's semantics.
It's, but law is not semantics.
Okay.
That's-
Words matter.
Okay, then.
Okay, so
we have to
current,
modify, I make a motion to modify the language.
there's a motion currently, and I don't know where you're going with it, but I think the motion is for you to be liaison. This was pre-discussed that you are not able to vote on this, and so it will be the four folks here voting aside from you, just to be aware of that. The audience, this was pre-discussed because it was brought up on Friday.
So if it's 2-2, then we can modify the committee policy to make it mandatory.
It wouldn't rectify this. A 2-2 vote would still be a 2-2 vote.
All right, so let's take the vote. see
That's
what it is.
exactly.
Hang on. I'm gonna be lawyerly here. Because it's for a specific trustee, whichever trustee it would be, or the mayor, that individual has to recuse themselves from any discussion and from voting, and that has to be in the minutes. That's only saying it because it has to be in the minutes. It would be any trustee or the mayor.
So, it's, I'd like to listen to that committee. I'd like for them to have some independence and then come to us. And of course, you're going to be able to present your proposal as far as the water revenue. But I think sometimes, when we get involved, things get gummed up. And I think it would really be beneficial. There's a great mix of people on that revenue advisory committee, or I don't know what we're calling it, committee.
Yep.
I think their independence would be good. And it sounds like they want to be proactive and communicate with us. So there's no reason for there to be an individual liaison, especially one that is so interested in, perhaps interjecting so much of their thought that they don't have that opportunity to speak freely and to develop their own ideas that we may have not thought about. And it doesn't stop you from keep presenting ideas. Heck, any of us could come up with one. But I just, every effort, well, if this person doesn't get voted in as a liaison, they're going to propose changing the committee, the rules. And it's, anytime there's something that doesn't happen according to how they wish, they change the rules. And I find that really kind of concerning and probably you're not allowed to communicate in this. So I encourage our board to allow the revenue committee to remain more independent and to just show what they're capable. And I think they're really capable, and they don't need a guiding hand from one of us on the board to interfere with their work.
And they're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, they went on a water tour on Saturday, and feedback from Bob Kavanaugh was it went great. I didn't even ask him. He came to me today and told me how Scott Kearns did a great job with them, and afterward answered any questions they had. It's necessary to understand, I think, the water system before you talk about the water revenue. Mary, you're here, you're on the committee. Did you go on that tour?
I did.
You want to share your experience briefly? Just, can we? Go ahead, Mary.
There's a lot involved in our water system. things that we take for granted. So it's very interesting, the intricacies and the job that these guys do to keep our water clean and safe to drink. I applaud them. And yeah, there's a lot to discuss about water and sewer revenue.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think Alex is doing a phenomenal job as chair. They selected Alex as chair. And whenever he's had a question, we've gone to Carla with a question, for instance, on open meetings questions or how to handle the, whether or not they are or aren't, and what to do in a site visit type situation out of safety. And they were great about that too. So thank you to them for that. They ask questions when they want questions answered, and they have pros right now with them in terms of Scott Kearns and Bob Kavanaugh in terms of the water system. I'm not sure what we're accomplishing by mandating somebody right now to be an overseer of theirs. And it does go to the charter too in a little bit. We'll talk about some of the stuff in there, but I think from a perspective of the liaison itself, they don't want one, and that's where my vote will go. If they had said they did, I would have said, fine, this is this committee's option and decision ultimately. And as executive, normally I would listen and offer up that liaison position or role. It's usually liaisons or executive scenarios usually in these things. So that's why I'm of that view. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, and actually, if you look at the law, there is no definitive thing about the executive. There is actually no structure regarding liaisons in NICOM. But I would also say that it's kind of illogical not to have the person who created a water schedule that they would be reviewing to be intimately involved with the review of that. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I would say that also, I mean, if they have any questions or anything, they would obviously need her there probably for most meetings. So it sounds like she's going to be a de facto liaison anyways, because she's the one who created this water schedule, water revenue schedule, rate schedule. So
there are other proposals.
I think that's the only one that I think she was going to be intimately involved with. I mean, also Trustee Cormos was on the Revenue Advisory Committee in its original conception. She already knows the past history. So, I mean, I can't think of a better candidate.
Yeah,
given her history. So I don't know why someone is going to bring the information from the committee to the board.
So
That's a
briefly,
liaison. I don't know, if the committee truly doesn't want a liaison, I mean, we would have to understand whatever recommendations and findings they bring to the board. If they haven't talked to the right people, if they haven't answered the right questions, we're just gonna have to tell them to go back and do it.
Sure.
Before we take any
But
recommendations.
so here's the thing. So it is my understanding, because we've had a few of the past revenue advisory committee people here express that things that were discussed at those meetings were not properly and accurately, I should say, reported back to the board and the public. So I think I'd rather hear exactly what they say. You cannot get involved, Liz Cormos. You know that you have not accurately reported back. It's been said several times, and you are not to engage in this conversation. You're in violation right now.
Okay, I'm calling a timeout here. Generally, Alex, who's chair of your committee, that in question here is raising his hand. Alex, thanks for joining us on it, and go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just, the general consensus of the committee was that we will try to be available for all meetings, especially ones that revolve around the revenue discussions. And I think everyone just wanted to be able to represent our findings directly with the board. We have a meeting set for the 20th, and I think it would be great to have any board members that want to offer insight available then. So Liz is definitely welcome to come to that meeting, because I know she's done a lot of work, and we're not trying to, you know, step on our toes on what she's done so far. I think we just all want to be able to kind of speak our own findings. So that's where we're coming from.
And Alex, as I always tell you, thank you for all the work you're doing. I know being a chair is added amount of stress in your life, but I know everybody's been thrilled with your work as chair in a short time. So thank you again.
Just to set the record.
You
No.
cannot speak. Zoom has asked Liz for you to please speak up because they can't. hear you.
Oh.
Well, she can't speak up period right now. She's not allowed to speak right now.
Set the record
I get it.
straight
Yeah.
about the previous
Don't
committee.
shoot the messenger. You can't.
Liz, you can't.
I can't.
No.
set the- I can't.
No, you shouldn't even be at this table right now for this discussion.
Well, I think committees have liaisons. Every committee has a liaison, and there's a reason they have a liaison. And it's
No, they don't.
serves a very useful function.
Not every committee does.
What committee does it?
Okay, we're going to question. Planning board and zoning board. Planning board and zoning board, Ben. Calling the
I'm
question.
talking about advisory. And anyway, Liz has done a great job, and she could continue to do a
Roll
great
call.
job.
I don't even know.
Trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Van
No.
Mayor Rossi.
No, trustee Cormos is recused, and so the vote is 2-2. It does not carry. Okay, hold on here. Let's take a very nice question. Can I get a motion to adopt the attached charter for the Revenue Advisory Committee? Trustee Cormos.
I'll second. You need a microphone, Liz.
Well, we got her at least on the acknowledgement there. Okay, we have a variety or a litany of comments that we got from the attorney today on this one. And so we got two choices. We can table or we can walk through these one by one.
Which of those comments were legal? Or advice?
All of my comments were legal, and I did get your email saying that your prior counsel and another attorney had already reviewed this, like the prior one, the 2019 one.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Attorneys are allowed to have different opinions. These are my opinions.
Okay, so, because it was good enough the first time around. And so, and was reviewed by two attorneys, so.
Well, two attorneys at this table think it's a load of crap right now, and let me tell you why. First off, you tell.
Is it, no, I don't know.
Okay, one attorney does, the other one doesn't.
Necessary to use language like
Can we
that.
have Carla
Okay.
express her own opinion?
Well, if we're going to continue here, let's go. As a first order of business, the RAC will meet with trustee Cormos to review and discuss with her an analysis of proposals she has developed for water revenue enhancement, as well as possible alternatives. I don't understand why you would mandate that that's the first thing a committee would do. You need an education as to what our water system is, how our revenues are taken in, what our expenses are, and appreciate our entire water system before you would start talking about solutions in this whole thing. So I have no idea where this would come from, or why that would be appropriate. That's one. Number two, the RAC should develop a set of water and sewer recommendations by October 2023. What's the rush? This isn't going to be approvable until the next fiscal year's first water period, because it's no way to get it done by December 1st, 2023. So let them make their own decisions about the speed they're going to move at. I'd rather have them to do their proper diligence and discussion instead of rushing the thing, because you're going to try to tell them there's only two alternatives and nothing else out there for them to review.
Will you stop putting words in my mouth, telling me what I'm going to do?
Number three, the RAC should develop a set of parking recommendations by January 2023. First, we need a parking code before we can even go there. And it's the wrong year, by the way. It's 2024, I think you intend, unless you think that they should have had a recommendation out about 6 months ago. Per existing committee policy, a trustee chosen by the majority of board members will act as liaison. That is not the existing committee policy, as told to us earlier. The last two paragraphs are all kinds of mishmash of having it both ways without clarity as to what it is. And that's where legal has a real issue with this whole thing, from what I understand. So there's about 6 issues with this. Have at it and fix them.
Well, one of the corrections is it's 2 sources of revenue that can make.
Okay, 7 issues, go.
As far as the parking revenue, that was your idea. You wanted the revenue committee to look at parking.
It doesn't need to be in a charter. I guess what I don't understand is all of it. Like your thing doesn't need to be in the charter. His thing doesn't need to be in charter. Their charter, sorry, everyone. I don't think we need to be so prescriptive. Like we can just say, please look at different ways to kind of address revenue. Are we doing things correctly? Are there ways we can do this better? I don't think you need to have things spelled out so specifically, because I think it just.
This whole thing came about because I was ready in March to present some alternatives on water and sewer fees to this board. And it was recommended that we reinstate the revenue committee.
Of
It was
course.
the main reason that.
It
this
was the
meeting-
only reason it got reconvened.
No, I think when I was supportive of creating the revenue advisory committee, I meant to look at a variety of things, not just one.
Well,
one
this is the
thing.
most important
So-
because we have $18 million worth of improvements to do in the next 5 years, including the water tower. So water revenue and sewer revenue should be the prime task of this committee.
So I think.
Instead of looking at other things first, that is.
I think they're not
What's gonna
stupid. I
generate the
think they
most
can.
revenue?
I think they understand that charge. I think they do understand that. And they already started that process as far as like getting education on the water system. But overall, I mean, there's stuff that needs to be fixed here. So is it even ready for a vote tonight? It's not even ready for a vote. And if there's concerns about paragraph count, the third from the bottom, is that the one that you said there was serious?
The last two,
Last two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not ready.
Actually, last three, because it starts with the FOIL issues there that I remember that you had, right?
I just had questions that I wanted answered.
Yeah, I think this is ready. And I think the reason that trustee Cormos was put in the charter as first order of business is not that that will be the only proposal that is considered, but she has spent a lot of time collecting data, analyzing it, and thinking of multiple alternatives. And there's absolutely no reason for this committee to start from square one.
So she has the only alternatives and ideas.
That's nobody's saying that, Frank, but she has.
You are saying it.
No, nobody said that.
No,
Frank.
I am
And you're
not
interrupting.
saying that.
And you're interrupting. So the where was I?
I think the point is nothing is preventing her. No,
No,
none of us
actually-
want to prevent her. I don't
Actually,
want
this
to
is,
prevent
sorry,
her.
this is where I was going. This is where I was going
Okay.
before I interrupted.
She was just invited.
There's now a history of this board and Liz being excluded from this committee. So first there was a meeting that was secret. We weren't told. There was the day after the last board meeting. Nobody was told there was a committee meeting scheduled. It wasn't on the calendar. And we weren't, only Frank knew about it, apparently. Second meeting that happened was this tour. Liz asked to go on the tour. She hasn't been on the tour. Frank denied her access for absolutely no reason, except for political reasons, to allow her on the tour.
And Carla's legal opinion.
The two reasons you gave, Frank, were, it's a public meeting issues vaguely, which didn't apply. And the second was that, there's sensitive water sites, as if Liz isn't an elected public official. So there was no reason she couldn't attend. Given that history, given that lack of communication, we need to spell out Liz's participation in this committee, or it won't happen. So when you do things like that,
I
there's
wanted to
always-
go on
there's
that tour
going to
and I also
response.
didn't go.
Frank said that
So-
you and she you already went on that tour, Bernadette.
No, I haven't.
You already did a water tour.
No, I didn't, sir.
I thought you said you did.
I would want to. I haven't done it yet. Hold on.
Well, Frank, when there's an email saying that you and Bernadette don't want to go on that tour from you, Frank.
So I said we weren't going on the tour because you're accusing me of going on the tour. I was like, I'm not going on the tour. What are you talking about?
Frank, there was no reason Liz couldn't be on the tour. When I asked, are you and Bernadette going on the tour? Is that why Liz can't go? He said, no, we are not going on the tour. So there was absolutely no reason Liz couldn't have gone on that
Now,
tour.
would you like to hear the reasons provided? The actual reasons?
I remember them very well.
Apparently not. You may want a good recollection because here we go. When this was originally hatched, this idea of going on a water tour, Ben, the problem becomes the same problem we had with the site visit by CDTA. How do you handle a site visit if there's open meetings law that's involved in a meeting? Because a site visit technically has all the people there. And how do you conduct it? And so the question I asked Carla before this one was, hey, that CDTA possible meeting, could we maybe all be there? And she said, well, are you going to be there as basically mute the whole time? If not, no, you can't, because we can't conduct business in terms of speaking, et cetera. And so there went that idea. So then the Revenue Advisory Committee asked, hey, we want to do a water tour as a group. How do we go about it? And so it went back to Carla, and I'm like, how would they go about it? Are you okay with the idea that if they go without saying a word and they're just watching Scott Kearns and Bob Kavanaugh present as they go to these facilities, is it okay? Yes. Okay, so how do you accomplish that? You go in with the meeting that was noticed, you go into your meeting, you do your business you have to do, you gavel a recess or adjournment, you go on your tour. Don't say a word, take your notes. Then come back into open session and ask your questions at that point in time in an open meeting session at that point in time. Having somebody else in that water tour would have allowed all this conversation to go on while they can't say a darn thing, and it was specifically tailored to their needs to see things for this.
Liz is perfectly capable of following the rules with everyone else.
Excuse me.
She just didn't earlier when she was supposed to recuse herself. How do you think that's gonna work? But then I actually didn't go. I was at the farmer's market on Saturday. I wanted to go on the water tour. Liz, I'd be happy to take that tour with you. It'd be great if both of us got to go there.
Which
but
I
think
stated
it's-
I would accommodate readily. It was just not Saturday, not with the rack, because the rack was scheduled to be the rack with Scott and Bob. That was it. You were inviting yourself to a tour that you knew darn well was supposed to be
Can I
that.
ask Mary if any conversation happened during that tour? Was the whole group completely silent during that tour? Did they ask any questions?
Yes.
Nothing to be allowed to ask.
Yeah, you can talk about the water facilities. Why not?
I thought he said they had to be silent.
They should have been. So we,
So they weren't.
okay, well,
I want to go.
well, that's the problem. You're a member of the
No.
public in a sensitive facility. And so their assumption was that because it was a notice meeting for a water tour, that the public would have the ability to go on a water tour into our sensitive water facilities.
No, the assumption was Liz is not another member of the public. She's an elected official. And so we don't have to worry about
And again,
sensitive facilities.
I
when it
said
comes to
to
a
her, Bob,
member of the
Frank,
government.
you were trying to keep me away from the committee.
No,
Come
but
on,
Liz-
admit it.
No, Liz, I was not. I was trying to keep the
I didn't know,
committee.
I didn't know about the first meeting.
I didn't set up
You
the first
attended-
meeting. I didn't set up
You
that.
attended that meeting. Why did you attend that?
Why
meeting?
didn't you tell everyone it was happening?
Because it was set up to basically be Bob and Scott saying hello and offering.
And
where
then why were
things are
you
going.
there?
I said, thank you for being part of this
No, he
committee and your
said-
time. That's all I said to them, basically. Had a couple of questions. I gave them some ideas of where the water situation. I'm sorry.
Hey, can we get back to the?
Yeah.
So how?
Hold on, Alex has his hand up again, out of respect. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, I guess I partially wanted to apologize. I mean, I wasn't the chairperson at that first meeting, but I think jumping into, this is the first time I've been involved in anything village related, so I don't necessarily know all of the procedures and stuff. So as far as invites to things go, like you said, it was that the first meeting I think was set up by people not on the committee, so it's, we showed up and participated, and I think going on, we'll be more clear on, making things open to everyone and involving, like I said, we'd be happy to have everybody on the on the Board of Trustees participate in meetings going forward. Like I said, the next meeting is on the calendar, so it's going to follow open meetings.
Well, we're limited to 2 at a time in that respect too, Alex, because we can't conduct a meeting without notice of our own meeting, but we can work with that.
We don't blame you, Alex, at all.
Yeah.
And then on the tour, we tried to do it like you recommended on the open meetings thing. So on the tour itself, we tried to stick to information gathering and not having any sort of political discussions or ideations on ideas on the tour. So the tour itself was, I think, handled as more of a sightseeing and information gathering, not like a forum for discussion on the topic. So I think there's been some discussion about that, but it wasn't at all a political discussion or anything like that. So
Thanks, Al.
Yep.
Bring that up.
Hey, Alex, what's your address, just so Terry has it with the record too?
It's 60 Hyde.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off
No,
earlier.
that's okay. So it seems like we have 2 choices here. Either we table this and have Carla answer her question.
No, Carla asked the questions.
Carla asked the question.
To give Carla answers to questions, I guess.
Yeah, or ask questions. Okay, or we have her ask her questions now.
No, I
Well, she did. Let's go through the questions and see if they're reconcilable.
I think they are not. I think they need to be addressed.
Well,
If the last 2 paragraphs are problematic.
I'd like to go, let's go through and I'm not sure that's true.
Anybody have a second one?
So the first comment, where's the third? So of course, that's an edit to the third, I think was supposed to be water is 1, sewers 2, and then parking is the third.
No, she said that was a misprint.
Or she could change it to 2. Number 2, how can a charter require one specific proposal? The purpose of charter is to provide the group with the guidelines as to its purpose. So there, I would suggest that it shouldn't be implied, if it is, that there's just one proposal proposed.
Who's going to rewrite this in real time?
Well, the question is it implied?
But who's going to rewrite this in real time? Because now you're changing the attached charter, and so how does this even get correctly handled?
It's not like it's a motion being edited by, this is.
Document.
The thing is, this is a charter, this is a guide. I really don't see why we have to, the intention here is that they will take minutes, they will have an agenda, it'll be posted on the website, and their information will be available to the public. So it follows most of those tenets such that the public can see what they're doing. It's about being transparent, and that they will get access to the publicly available data. And that has a history too, because I still haven't gotten all the data, water data, that I requested last August. That's why that's in here.
You haven't gotten the data you think exists that Bob has told
Oh,
you
I
multiple
know that
times.
data exists,
Oh, okay,
because I've seen it before from Julia. So I don't think they've changed their system. They still collect the readings. And the billing information was combined for the whole year, whereas we have separate water bills every 6 months. Why weren't those numbers given?
None of these concerns raised to the level where I would not vote for this charter. I'd still vote for this charter.
My only concern, so can somebody explain to me the difference between a charter and a charge? Because we've had to address Arts Committee charge and fix it for them. They requested a fix. I don't, legitimate question. Okay, so Ben doesn't know, I don't know, like.
What did we change it to?
They wanted, because they didn't want to have, I think the basic gist was some of the structure stuff and who they pick as their chair. And then also having to approve certain things.
What did they change it from and to? From
to
charter?
simplify, no, it's still charge, but to me, are they not the same kind of vibe, for lack of for too modern of a word, I shouldn't say vibe, but I guess the point is they had to correct it, you know what I mean? They felt like it needed some correction. So unless they figured this out right now. But I mean, well, I guess my point is maybe take a hot second and kind of fix it.
I mean, when I look at it, there's questions, but the answers are somewhat in there. It's like, maybe someone else might think they don't have to be in there, but I think they do explain themselves.
Well, the last three paragraphs are inconsistent, though, is what the point was that she made. What are you trying to accomplish here? Is it a public body? Isn't it? Is it open meetings law? Is it not? What's FOIL? Is FOIL applicable in the ways that you're
Those questions
stating?
are answered here.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna operate with certain rules that happen to be the same as in open meeting law. That's all it's saying. But it isn't an official body, it's an advisory committee. So it doesn't fall automatically under open meetings law.
It's a committee of the board. And so by default, that is not a public body. I'm asking, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
If an advisory committee is that,
Hold on, no, this is a committee of the board at the end of
Right,
the
this
day.
isn't, right, the whole idea of a committee of the board, of any board. The committee of the board or any board, they're generally subject to open meetings law. If they have any ability to make a determination. No committee you have here has it, like Arts Committee, I don't believe Park and Tree, I always get that wrong, sorry, has the ability to make a determination. They're all recommendations. So none of them would technically be subject to open meetings. It doesn't matter to me whether they're subject to open meetings or not. I don't know why it's in here. I think that whether prior attorneys were fine with it or not. I mean, I'm fine with it if you want to do it. I think, I don't know if you need all of this in here. I mean,
Right, so it's
I
optional.
think you can make it, I'm sorry.
Sorry. It's optional, like you can take it out or leave it in.
But it's confusing. If I'm reading this and you're saying it's subject to FOIL, but it's not a public body, only public agencies are subject to FOIL. So it's not subject to FOIL. And I do a lot of FOIL. So I can tell you that, it's a public agency that is subject to FOIL. You're saying it is and then it isn't. That's my concern, is that it's legally inconsistent. So pick one way.
Can we just cross out?
Can we say that it's not a public body, but that we want it to be subject to FOIL?
No, you
Upon
can't
request.
create something subject to FOIL. It's either a public agency or it's not.
Just cross out under the Freedom of Information law and leave it like that, including public and requested. So just cross out,
So why do you need the last paragraph?
because that stated just what you said.
But why do you need it? Do you have that paragraph in all of your committee charters? It's superfluous, is what I'm saying.
Well, it spells out that it's expected they have a notice of their meetings and attendance is welcome and that they can meet without a quorum, but they cannot vote on matters without a quorum. It sort of spells out. The Arts Committee has had questions about this. Do we need to notice? Is this open meeting or not? This spells out questions that have come up
But
in the
clarifies that
history.
it's not above public body. That's all it does.
Take that sentence out.
Why?
Why is it? It's superfluous. There's no reason for it to be in there.
Well, but it's there, so.
Okay, so this is why I put these questions in there. They're not to say it's good, better, or different. These are my concerns. These are my questions. And it's really difficult to do something like this in real time. And I apologize for that, but it's also 10:30 at night. So
But
I don't know.
does it do any harm? to
Yeah, it doesn't do any harm.
It's
I don't really care.
however you want to do it.
Take a
It's
motion to table.
confusing, but I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Roll call.
Trustee Baskin,
No.
trustee Raymond,
No.
trustee Van Denza,
Yes.
trustee Cornels,
Nope.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes.
Okay. I think if we change, I appreciate your comments. It could be rewritten, but it is a charter. The committee itself may make suggestions to change it going forward. That's fine.
Yeah, a charter that's telling them what their order of business is, that's not a charter, that's a directive.
Well,
I mean, can we take that
Yeah.
paragraph? Would you be,
which
okay.
paragraph?
Sorry, you're fine.
Would you be okay with taking that as a first order of business? They will meet with you. Would you be okay to take that out, knowing that they just invited you to that meeting? I mean, that was one of my first questions was, if it's a charter, you don't normally put like an identification of a specific person is going to talk to a specific person.
Yeah, we do
So
that. Sorry.
that's something that I thought was odd, whether it be you or the mayor or anyone. I thought it was odd to, in a charter that's gonna go beyond this, why a specific person is identified.
We are in this odd situation in this village. It's odd that we weren't told that the revenue committee was meeting by Frank, and it's odd that Liz wasn't allowed to go on that tour. And so this might be a little odd if it was in a different village, but in this village, it's probably required. It's probably necessary.
And can somebody remind me, who was Alex's appointment? Alex just invited you to the meeting.
He invited me to the meeting, but
He just invited
But
you,
this
so
says
it doesn't need to be
that-
memorialized in
that I will
a
discuss
document.
with them.
Yeah, of course you're gonna discuss, it. Like, no one's not saying that. I assumed you were going to.
There are people in
So-
that committee that might tell Liz, we don't want you to talk at this meeting. And so it's important that in the charter, it says, no, actually, there is a space for trustee Cormos to share the extensive research she's done, or it may not
I think
happen.
it's inappropriate to have it in here. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, it
Not
would-
because it's you, it would be if I put myself in there, that'd be inappropriate. It's really inappropriate, quite
Well-
honestly. But again, her own appointee, who is the chair of that committee, has invited her. And I mean, honestly, they're gonna have questions for you. It is your proposal. They're going to have questions.
I
So
agree,
there's,
in a different village, it would be very odd. I agree.
Ben, that's so sad that you have that, that it's
I'm
like.
just facing facts.
Alex just got to raise his hand. Go ahead. Alex, go ahead. Alex, go ahead if you can hear us. We can't hear you though.
Are you on mute?
Alex, go ahead.
Should be unmuted. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was just saying, I think, I mean, all politics aside, I know Liz has been working on this for a long time. So I think the committee is a smart group of people, and objections to us hearing her out, I think are unfounded, because I mean, if we don't agree with the work she's done to date, I mean, if there's a problem with her suggestions, we'll just throw them out. It's not like we're all an intelligent group of people. So I don't think it's a problem hearing what she's done, and I would certainly like to, because I think at least a number of us on the committee are kind of starting from square one on this. So.
And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I did thank you guys, I actually encouraged you to bring her in to present, and among other proposals that you may find or other people may have, correct?
Yeah, for sure. But tonight, I feel like there's been a bunch of discussion that's, negative on us seeing her proposal. And like I said, I think, again, all of you, if anyone else has any proposals or suggestions or, goals for us set that they want to see us meet, I think we're open to hearing that from everyone. And I don't know on the open meeting stuff, I don't know, like you said, only 2 people per meeting, but I think we need to hear from all of you in some capacity at least.
Yeah, notice the joint meeting. Yeah.
So since our attorney suggested that we get rid of one paragraph that says first order of business, and it sounds like, the committee is very interested in meeting. Well, why don't we eliminate that on the advice of our attorney? And the last paragraph, if the attorney's saying it's superfluous, and we're not going to foil, why don't we eliminate that and then just pass what's left?
The only other thing I'm not comfortable with is putting a date obligation on. them.
Yeah, see, I'm totally comfortable with that. Milestones are necessary. So,
And I like the last paragraph because it explains things to people. It may not be legally necessary, but it's helpful. I think it's not harmful.
and I honestly don't think if we're looking at trustee Cormos's proposal and then potentially looking at variations of that, I would think October 2023 would be a reasonable milestone.
Trustee Cormos, what do you think about taking out that paragraph, given Alex's assurance
Yeah.
that you can go to those meetings and share your data and recommendations?
Yeah, and what I did with the original revenue committee is do various iterations. I did various iterations of different scenarios. And then we decided to table the whole thing because there were so many broken meters in the system that we felt that the data that we got from the system was not, complete. And that we agreed that we'd come back and work on it in a couple of years when more of the system was actually working. So I'm prepared to do that with this group if they want me to.
Great.
Or if somebody wants to spend hours and hours running different scenarios, they can do that too.
No, there's no one better than you to do that. And Alex, I want to let you know that Liz is an invaluable resource, and her energy level and her dedication and her expertise will really come in handy with your committee and be a real value to you. So I encourage you to utilize her as much as you can.
Ben, I just want to remind you one thing. They have Scott Kearns, who has decades of knowledge of the water system in its entirety. They have Bob Kavanaugh, who runs the billing and is a guard dog on all numbers to make sure that they're right and chases down folks if the meters don't match correctly and everything else. So let's be reasonable that they have the best currently with them.
I didn't say
Let's honor them.
she was the only resource, but she is doing analysis that no one else is doing. No one else is doing what she's doing.
You know that for a fact.
I know for a fact because I looked at the sheet and it's indexed entirely differently than the current spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yeah, so it comes up with completely different results.
You need a microphone.
I know, well, I don't have.
You can still use just the batteries hanging out. So.
I guess. Can you hear me? No.
So far it's not. Yeah.
Well, again, I've reviewed the spreadsheet that she developed on the water rates, and it appears to me that.
Well, let's all see it.
That was what I proposed last March.
Well, no,
And it's just indexed differently than the existing spreadsheet that was used by Bob Kavanaugh. And so that it develops different revenue based on different indexing. And I think that's really what is the advisory committee's task as far as this, is to review that and compare it to how we do existing and see if it's the feasibility of it. I don't have a problem with having a list of things for them to look at. I don't think it should be limited to just those things. But as far as where to start, obviously water and sewer revenue is our biggest revenue stream out of what's listed here. Other than taxes. So
anyway, so Liz, you're going to send that spreadsheet to everybody, right?
What spreadsheet?
The one that he's just referring to.
I'm not sure exactly which one.
What were you defining there?
Do you want me to present my analysis to the board, or do you want?
No, I just want the same data that the other trustees have seen apparently. Burnett, would you have an interest in seeing that?
Yes, share it, when you share it with the committee, share it with us when you're ready to.
Well, you know, it's already been shared with you, and you're saying this
Well,
is
that's like
vital
years
information.
ago.
I think Sean was.
You were only here
talking
for 2
about
years.
a previous analysis that I had
Okay,
done.
well, I remember seeing a summary of your spreadsheet.
Could you forward it over? She clearly doesn't remember what you're talking about, so if you can forward that over, would
I mean,
appreciate
there's
it.
a lot of iterations. I wouldn't want to do it. I would want her to give whatever the iterations.
And also, you know,
Back to the charter.
I need,
Yeah.
I need
So,
to.
I just wanted the data, sure, go ahead.
So, all right, we're not specifying that one paragraph, but, you know, and we're changing, 3 to 2, but could we say among others? Just because it's not
I
there.
think Carla's got a recommendation on language, actually, so I'll let her take it.
I actually was looking, I know there was concerns about the October 2023 date, the January 2024 date. The way it's written, should develop, could we just say should aim to develop a set of water and sewer recommendations by October 2023? That keeps the October 2023 date in, but it doesn't handcuff them if they're going to, the goal is for, as Sean said, you need to have milestones. So we have a milestone of October 2023 that they're going to aim to get, but considering that's in 4 months, it may not be possible to get there.
3 months.
Okay, my point being, what about just adding the word aim to develop?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's fine. I don't think that adds anything, but whatever.
Why
We're
don't,
just talking.
since you
I
had a
guess.
question about the parking revenue, why don't you just put as second thing, make it more general? Unless,
We need a code.
well, that's it. If you do, then other revenue sources.
Instead of saying parking, say other revenue.
Yeah, other revenue sources. So if it's parking, if the parking code's done in time, and then we can take out the deadline for that. Just say two things.
Just a reminder, Law Ryan, who's your pick, is not a village resident, and so the reason why it would make sense for him to be on the water aspect of this is because he's a customer.
Right.
So the parking part, I'm not so sure.
That's true. He could step off after.
Well, I just want to remind you of it because I think I got lost in translation of this, and law's a great asset in the water end of it. I'm not denying that. It's just think about what happens next, I guess, too.
Why can't we just be general and say, we'll focus on sources of revenue. Specifically identifying first water and sewer revenue, and just leave it like that. Because you're saying we'll focus on sources of revenue, which is generalized, and then you say with a priority of water and sewer. That way you take out the whole parking revenue part, and you've taken out parking recommendations and you generalized it so that once the water and sewer is done, this committee can continue moving forward for other sources of revenue.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds reasonable. And then they should aim to develop the water and sewer by.
I'm not touching that. I'm just saying aim to.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and eliminating as first order.
Oh, yeah,
That's gone.
That's gone.
Okay, just make sure we're all good.
Focus
Well,
on
but we're
sources
having
of
the
revenue.
same, we're having the same meaning, which is, we're saying prioritize, which means that's the first order, right?
Yeah, but no. What that paragraph, it says, the way it reads now, the RAC will focus on sources of revenue with a priority with a first priority, we can put it with a first priority of water and sewer revenue. The RAC should aim to develop a set of water and sewer recommendations by October 2023. Take out 2 altogether. And then, you go, I'm not even touching the rest of it. You guys didn't talk about the rest of it. That's what I would recommend for the beginning of it. That brings it much general. You're here to talk about revenue, start with water and sewer.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine. And we're taking out under New York State Freedom of Information Law on the.
I took out, under the New York State Freedom of Information Law, and then I took out the last whole paragraph, although Ben had an issue with that.
I think it's helpful that it's not illegal. I think it it's clarifying for whoever's on the committee and whoever wants to know about it.
I think advisory kind of indicates that.
Well,
Yeah.
but the thing is, um, the fact that the public is welcome at meetings, that's.
Let's just leave it.
So that should be said,
I think it's
and that they will, notice their meeting. So I think that last sentence is useful.
You can keep it if you want to. I think it's superfluous, but if you want to keep it,
Yeah, that's just.
there's no legal ramifications if you leave it in or take it out. It was just a suggestion.
Okay,
Can we hear it now?
are we done?
Can you hear what?
Are we gonna vote on it or?
Well, I just want to make sure I have all the changes because we are doing this in real time.
Yeah.
And we changed January 20.
No, we took that whole thing out.
We took that out.
Yep.
Okay.
Whoever knew this committee would be this much work to just get it going.
They're honestly, no, they're doing fine. That's the whole issue here. They're
All right,
doing
let's just
fine.
stay with it.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this?
Well, make sure she's got the language.
All right, folks, so the first paragraph we're not touching. All in agreement? The second paragraph, the RAC will focus on sources of revenue, with the first priority being water and sewer revenue. The RAC should aim to develop a set of water and sewer recommendations by October 2023. Take out to parking revenue, take out the next sentence. Leave the next paragraph the same. The following paragraph where it says begins, the RAC will consist of 7 members. We're taking out the under the New York State.
Sorry, Carla, after the January 23, which we're taking out the liaison sentence, right?
Yeah. because it's
Yeah,
something that
but how about the sentence after that? Or do you want, should we have that? The RAC will submit its findings, and recommendations to the village board of
That's
trustees?
fine, that's what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So
I just wasn't sure if you're leaving that in or not.
No.
Okay, so we're leaving
Take
that in.
out,
Good.
take out that sentence, so then we go through to 7 appointees, we're taking out at the last under NYS Freedom of Information Law, leaving the next paragraph the same. Although, again, superfluous, but it's the same. And then we are leaving the last paragraph in.
Last sentence.
Nope, we're leaving the last paragraph in.
Yep.
That's what I was told.
Yep.
Oh, I thought we were talking about body.
I thought we were too, but we're not.
That's fine. It may be superfluous, but it does state what. And
I'm fine with the last 2 lines, but if it's unnecessary to have the first sentence, just take it out.
I think people might ask. Why not
I mean, the
why not leave
members-
it in?
of the committee, as Alex said, don't know all the rules.
Right.
So
They don't apply to them, so technically.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you just keep the last 2 lines, because it's confusing, they don't technically fall under open meetings law, and so.
this was.
But we're asking them to, notice them because we as a board are asking them to. And we are asking them to allow the public, not the open meetings law. We are just asking.
Right.
Why do we have committees and we trust these people so little?
It's not trust, it's
I guess that's
educational.
my point, for why I take out.
We had to understand if the committees were under open meetings law or not. We weren't sure of that. And I think it's not,
Well, but
It's
it's
helpful.
helpful. We're doing that on Saturday because what.
no, I'm talking about just tonight. It was like, FOIL, does FOIL apply? We're learning things. It's not about trust, it's about learning. things.
Okay, if you want, leave it in or take it out of here.
I like it in.
Just that first line, I think would be wise to take out, but. Just keep the second 2 lines.
Why
It's
is,
still-
you think it's just confusing or?
Well, because they don't actually fall under open meetings. law.
Right.
We as a board are asking them to. be-
Right, no, I understand.
You know what I'm saying? So just take
But
that
people
out.
might, people sort of have this vague idea, oh, there's something called open meetings law. So does this committee apply to it or not?
If it's outlined,
They
by
Google it.
us, it doesn't matter.
They won't. They can Google it. They won't know if it applies to that committee or not.
It will say RAC will however conduct its meetings, hold on, I should be on my. I'm saying, just take that first line of the last paragraph, it will still say RAC will conduct, not however, conduct its meetings with notice of meetings, that's a lot of
All right.
and attendance,
That's fine.
and then RAC can meet
I
without
like
a
the first
quorum.
sentence, but
It does
sake
point
of-
out that, essentially they don't have any authority. They're an advisory committee. They have no power to take. final
Advisory already says that, so you don't
That's
need that.
implicit in the title.
Okay,
All
I don't
right,
care.
that's fine.
Let's just finish this up.
Okay, so.
Trimming down.
Oh, believe me.
All right.
It was up to him, it would have been gone.
So I have taken out the first sentence of the last paragraph. I've taken out comma, however, comma, the second sentence of the last paragraph. And I have taken out trustee Cormos's name at the bottom. I don't know. I mean, I think that's just because you wrote it, but I took that out.
Terry,
I will give Terry a
well,
Yep.
well, for 4 hours ago, who made the motion, who seconded it?
Liz made it.
I made it, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I?
Liz, do you accept these changes?
Yes, I do.
Ben, do you accept them
I do
as a
indeed.
second?
Yes, I did.
Can I call the question?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At this point, I abstain because I don't even know what the hell we just did. So it's 4-0-1 approved.
Are we going to have an executive session about the other topic we were talking about early on?
The facilities.
I thought we agreed that we were just gonna keep the conversation going. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. I thought that's where we landed on.
I thought we sort of started in now.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess as long as we move forward.
Other business? I just want to apologize to Carla for the way she did get treated tonight. Overall was not appropriate fair, and we all have to do better in this respect. I can't understand why we do that to somebody that's trying to do their job. And I think unfortunately we do that to too many people that work for us in this village. It's unnecessary, whether you think it's political stuff or not, like what, respect. And apologize to the public for having to just deal with that in real time. For those that stuck with us for the last hour, you need hobbies, clearly, but at the same time. Yeah, as Christine's up here, and
It's
also
also-
talk about the sausage being made.
It's also important to clarify that some things that are said by legal counsel are just our opinion. They're not necessarily legally required. And in that case, we get to think about if we
Ben-
want to go one direction or
Ben,
another.
would you
And
like
it's
to-
not necessarily disrespectful to do that.
Ben, you just take the shovel, throw it out the window, please.
Seriously.
Because it's not necessary and it's just making it worse now.
Thank you, Carl. for
Thank
your
you.
patience.
Best thing it was said all night right there, honestly.
You're welcome. Yeah, we're a tough bunch.
Can I get a motion that vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 10:56 PM, please?
I'll make it.
Trustee Fandesa.
Second.
Trustee Raymond, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good night, folks.